Chapter 83. The Turkic Army? Wasn't it said that the Turkic army had suffered heavy losses and that they were experiencing a rare snowstorm? Could it be that the Turkic army also had plans to invade the Central Plains and was just observing? Li Shimin was shocked. If that was the case then, Brother Zhang Feng, is what you said true? Li Shimin looked around with a grave expression. After Qing Yaojin and the others had shut up, Li Shimin asked again, if His Majesty really sends troops, I have to make plans first. Otherwise my family's assets will be completely ruined. As he spoke, Li Shimin actually squeezed out a few drops of tears sincerely. After that, Wei Zheng and the others hurriedly covered their faces with their sleeves and sobbed softly. Qing Yaojin was even more exaggerated. He directly leaned over the wine jar and wailed loudly. That loud voice and hurried trembling of the shoulders made Zhang Feng's face instantly darken. Each and every one of them was a burly man. They were all men in their 20s. Was there a need for this? Black lines could not help but appear on Zhang Feng's forehead. Fine. Lao Li, don't panic. Can you listen to me first? About this matter, let's start from the beginning. Li Shimin pretended to sob a few times and asked, Brother Zhang, you also know that I and the others have always been generous. We don't have any extra money and have always relied on Long Yu to make a fortune. This time I am indebted to you for this opportunity. This time. Then in the future I will never. Fine. Oh, Lao Li. Zhang Feng's head was about to explode. Did they have to be so effeminate? Could it be that the people of the Tang Dynasty were all effeminate? *CK. Zhang Feng was about to explode. He was about to explode. He didn't care about anything else and said, It's like this. Do you still remember what I said about the current situation around the Tang Dynasty? I remember. When Li Shimin saw that Zhang Feng had started speaking seriously, he immediately stopped crying. He said, I remember that you said that if one side took action, it would definitely cause chaos in the entire western regions. Is that true? Yes. And most importantly, whoever moves first will be the first to perish. Moreover, in this part of the world, the most powerful forces are the Tang Dynasty and the Turks. Although we have signed a contract, you know how easy it is to tear it up. Now that the Tubo ambassador is here, Tuyuhun must be watching. Do you think the Tujua don't have any spies in Chang'an City? Don't you think that there's something wrong with the Turks not speaking up? Hearing this, Li Shimin was alarmed. Could it be that you're saying that the Turkic Khaganate is currently preparing their army? If we make the slightest move, the Turkic Khaganate will definitely make a move? That's right. Now everyone is watching every move of the Tang Dynasty. Now, everyone knows that the Turks are facing a snow disaster. But do you know that summer is coming? The snow is melting rapidly, and another crisis is causing the Turks to panic. What? This matter I really mean it? Li Shimin exploded. He hurriedly exclaimed. Zhang Feng was shocked. He covered Li Shimin's mouth and said, Ancestor, please keep your voice down. Do you want the whole world to know that we're talking about the state affairs? Hearing this, Li Shimin also suddenly realized and hurriedly shut his mouth. But he still asked, What crisis is there? Isn't this just a snow disaster? Could it be that there's also a plague of locusts there? Zhang Feng was speechless. Don't you have a brain? You're telling me that there are locusts in a place where cows and sheep can freeze to death? Do you think locusts are fools? Can they grow in that kind of place? Then what is it? Li Shimin was dumbfounded. Zhang Feng seriously doubted how these people built their industries. How could they not think of such a simple thing? Let me ask you, Lao Li, Zhang Feng said patiently, tell me, what do the Turks have the most? The most? Li Shimin said without hesitation, I know this. The Turks have developed animal husbandry. Almost everyone in the country is a nomad. Yes, a lot of cows and sheep. But what do their cows and sheep eat? *CK. God, I got it. Haha, Brother Zhang Feng, I got it. You're saying that cows and sheep can freeze to death, and now the grassland is recovering, but this snow disaster has seriously damaged the growth of the grassland. Is that so? Alas. Zhang Feng patted Li Shimin's shoulder and said speechlessly, Lao Li, you're finally enlightened. That's right. Now, although the snow has melted, haven't you heard of this saying? What saying? At this moment, Wei Zheng and the others were staring at Zhang Feng like curious babies. It's not cold when it snows, but it's cold when it melts. Now, although the snow has melted, but the basic ecology of the grassland has been completely changed. Now, with the freezing water, guess, will the grassland of the Turks be as lush as before? Freezing water? That's right. The snow had melted. But where would the water go? The Turkic Khaganate was basically a flat land, and this freezing water would cause an irreparable disaster to the Turks. This was a real natural disaster. Chapter 84. Why hadn't anyone in the Imperial Astronomer divined anything about this? Li Shimin couldn't help but feel a little scared. If the Tubo incident was not handled properly, it would be a huge blow to the entire Tang dynasty. Tuyuhun would definitely join forces with Tubo at the first opportunity. At that time, even Shui Yintua couldn't stop the Tujue from going south. Li Shimin couldn't help but feel a layer of cold sweat on his back. Brother Zhang Feng, based on what you said, doesn't it mean that we're really treading on thin ice when it comes to the Tubo incident? Don't we have a way to neutralize the threat from the Tujue? No. There's still a way. Actually, there's still one key point missing in this matter. Oh. Little brother, please enlighten me. Wei Jing hurriedly cupped one hand in the other before his chest. Zhang Feng chuckled. I've said it before. It's up to His Majesty to dig this hole. If this hole is well dug and the King of Tubo really promotes the water wheel when he gets it, it will definitely cause a commotion in Tuyuhun. At this time he can't retreat even if he wants to. At this time if I were Li Shimin I would play a trump card at this time. What trump card? Wei Jing and Li Shimin asked almost at the same time. Don't rush, don't rush. Take your time. Zhang Feng gestured for everyone to sit down and calm down. After that he continued, since I mentioned the Tujue, and the Tujue hasn't said anything until now, I'm sure he won't miss such an opportunity. If the Tang dynasty can eat meat, then he will definitely come to cause trouble at this time. Then how to solve this problem? While they were talking, Zhang Feng picked up a skewer of mutton and looked at it carefully for a while. This mutton is really expensive. I bought 3 kilograms of mutton and it cost me about 3 taels of silver. Huh. What does this have to do with mutton? Could this be? Wait a minute. Li Shimin was shocked. He seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly said, You mean we should take this opportunity to buy their cattle and sheep at a low price, or use their continued supplies to exchange for them? Smart. Tisk tsk tsk. I knew it. Our Lao Li's brain is really good. This kind of thing, your guess is right. Perhaps the current emperor has already thought of this matter. This is the key reason why he didn't agree to Tubo's request at the first moment. What? F***ck. This matter. This? Zhang Feng lightly patted Wei Zhang's shoulder to calm him down. Then he said, For this matter, we only need to take out the provisions given by Tubo and send envoys to the Tujue. Along the way we will wantonly go to all the tribes and announce that the Tang dynasty wants to exchange their horses, cattle, and sheep with cheap provisions. In this case when we reach the capital of the Tujue, then you, hee. Although Zhang Feng only chuckled in the end. Li Shimin and the others were not fools. Everyone understood now. By then, a series of chain reactions caused by Tubo would definitely be firmly in the hands of the Tang dynasty. Even if the snow disaster was over and the Tujue resumed production and the grassland was covered with lush weeds again, by then, would they still have horses, cattle, and sheep? No. By then they would definitely come to the Tang dynasty for help again. This was the most vicious plan of this plan. No. This was the ultimate goal. Not only did the Tang dynasty not pay a single cent, but they relied on a blueprint and some craftsmen to firmly pin down Tubo, Tuyuhun, and the Tujue. In this case then, Li Shimin's heart could not help but heat up again. The Emperor of the Ages. This was the real Emperor of the Ages. By then, the Tang dynasty would control the important economic products of Tubo and Tuyuhun, and control the productivity of the Tujue. It was equivalent to the Tang dynasty getting 3 long-term labor forces for free. Zhang Feng looked at the shocked faces of Li Shimin and the others. He was satisfied and comfortable eating the mutton and drinking the good wine. His heart was at ease. Needless to say, it was very comfortable. This kind of strategizing was a business model that everyone on Earth knew how to govern a country. This kind of business without any capital was at the fingertips of Zhang Feng in the past. In addition, he was familiar with the history of this era. Who could calculate more than Zhang Feng? However, Zhang Feng still did not dare to make any assertions about the things in the historical records. Everything he said today was only what he understood, and Li Shimin of the current dynasty would definitely have a better countermeasure. However, whether Li Shimin would be wrong or not, he could only take one step at a time. He was just watching Lao Li and the others chat again after drinking. After all, these people would be of great help to him when he activated the system in the future. He also wanted to earn money from sponsored partnerships and marry a wife. Thinking of this, Zhang Feng seemed to have thought of something and released another piece of important news. By the way, Tubo, Tuyuhun, and the outbreak of the locust plague in the Tang dynasty did not mean that the locust plague was only concentrated in these 3 places. Everywhere will be affected. For example, India, Nanzhao and so on will be hit hard. If I were the emperor, do you think I would let go of this opportunity to recruit subordinates? Chapter 85. Li Shimin's eyes flickered. His voice trembled with excitement as he said, "Are you saying that India will also be affected?" "That's right." Zhang Feng hooked his arm around Li Shimin's neck and said with a smile, "When the drought breaks out, I think that India and other countries will also have some places like Longyu Road. When we sell the water wheel, Tubo and other countries will definitely notice the worm eggs. Don't we have craftsmen? At that time we will publicize the locust plague a little." Publicize? Locust plague? Gulp. Everyone swallowed their saliva in horror. If that was the case, then wouldn't India and other countries be in chaos? If we were to launch this package at this time, then everyone could not help but look at Zhang Feng in a different way. 2 words appeared in their minds. Profiteer. This was the real profiteer. If he did that, damn it, everyone would be trapped by him. A thing that had made Li Shimin unable to sleep every night became a business in Zhang Feng's mouth? It became a package deal? And it was a no-cost deal? Zhang Feng looked at everyone slyly and said, "How about it? How about this deal? Do you have to move? Let me guess. When that time comes, you won't even be able to put the gold bars in your houses in Chang and city. You have to find a mountain and empty it to store the gold. Are all of your hearts about to fly away now? But let me tell you, this matter has already involved the highest level of the Tang dynasty." At this point, Zhang Feng's voice suddenly became serious. "Regarding this matter, I advise you to keep a low profile and make a fortune quickly. Don't look at other things, don't ask about them, and don't do them. If you don't listen, I think you will die without a burial place." Li Shimin laughed dryly and said, It's not that serious, right? It's not that serious?" Zhang Feng glared and said, "Think about it. How many countries are involved in this? When that time came, which country would not hate the person who came up with the bad idea? At that time, even the Tang emperors won't be able to protect you. You will face endless assassinations." Hiss. Qing Yaojin sucked in a breath of cold air, as if he had a toothache, and covered his mouth in shock. Because at this moment, everyone subconsciously looked at him. "I promise I don't know about this. I won't say anything either. Brother Zhang Feng. If you don't believe me, I'll cut off my tongue right now." Qing Yaojin was also anxious. However, Zhang Feng waved his hand and said, "That's not what I meant. I just want you to know the importance of this and remember your own identity. We're just ordinary people. We'll just make a fortune in silence. Don't worry about other things." His Majesty must have thought of so many things. Otherwise, you would definitely be in the palace now and not in this small tavern of mine. So, you must pretend that you don't know about this matter and do what you need to do. Even if people from the government come looking for you, you should hand in the drawings that should be handed in. This is the only way to protect you. Zhang Feng didn't think so much about this matter before. But when he was talking to everyone just now, he suddenly thought of this. He couldn't help but be shocked. That was why he said so much. It wasn't that he was talkative, but that these uncouth people came to inquire about this and that when they had nothing to do. The key point was that they were asking about things that could cost them their lives. He had to make it clear. Otherwise, even before he could activate the system, his life would be lost here for no reason. Li Shimin also knew the importance of this matter. He patted his chest and promised, "Brother Zhang, you can rest assured. Only heaven and earth, you and I know about this matter. Other than this small tavern, I guarantee that no one else here knows about this matter." Zhang Feng was still very assured about Li Shimin. Hugging his shoulder, he laughed and said, "With your words, we can rest assured." Li Shimin was shocked. Seeing that Zhang Feng didn't say anything else, he hurriedly got up and took out 3 large gold ingots, stuffing them into Zhang Feng's arms. "Brother Zhang. As for the thing from before, I will send a servant to pass the remaining 1,000 taels of gold to you later. This is half of the total income." 1,000 taels of gold? How much was this? Zhang Feng was a little confused. He didn't know what this was. However, Li Shimin saw his expression and couldn't help but add, "Don't worry, you have helped me so much. If this Tubo matter is solved when the time comes, I, Lao Li, will definitely share half of it with you." Everyone was shocked. What did the emperor mean? But at this time it was inconvenient to say more. Everyone followed suit and said that a servant would send 1,000 taels of gold in the future. Then they hurriedly left while Zhang Feng was still in a daze. At this time, Zhang Feng was still counting with his fingers. 1,000 taels of gold per person. That means 4 people, that's 4,000 taels of gold. 4,000 taels of gold. What kind of house can you buy in Chang and city? How many wives can you get? Chapter 86. They walked out of the tavern. The sky was slowly darkening. Li Shimin swept away his good-natured look and looked up at the dark red sky in the west. He asked calmly, "Official Wei, do you think it's feasible?" "Your Majesty, I think it's feasible." Li Shimin was silent. However, in the depths of his eyes, there was a trace of madness flashing. This was too crazy. If he didn't take this step properly, the Tang dynasty would fall into an abyss of no return. But if he succeeded, he would become an existence that surpassed the Qin Emperor and the Han Emperor. This was an unparalleled honor for every monarch. This was what a son of heaven should do. This was the courage an emperor should have. Li Shimin couldn't help but feel a little scared. If he had refused in the imperial court today, Tubo would have made a move in desperation. What would happen to the Tuyuhun and Turks who were watching? He didn't dare to think about it. If they didn't come up with a plan after the imperial court today, what would happen now? Li Shimin admitted that he didn't think as far as Zhang Feng. Although Zhang Feng kept saying how wise he was, only he knew that he couldn't do all this. Li Shimin wanted to say his idea today. He wanted to get all the food from Tubo in one go. But before he could say it, Zhang Feng vetoed this idea. And he even told him the consequences of doing so. At that time, Li Shimin was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. If he did that, in 5 days the Tang dynasty's border would break out into war. And it would be the Tubo, Tuyuhun and Turks' allied army. Could he resist them? He couldn't. The Tang dynasty was recuperating now. There were 300,000 soldiers guarding Yuzhou, 100,000 patrolling Chang and city, 200,000 in Tongguan, 500,000 in Longyu Road, and 200,000 in the south. Other than that, the Tang dynasty didn't have a single soldier. If a war were to break out now, then, would his army of 1.3 million be able to stop the blossoming battlefield? When he entered the palanquin, Li Shimin looked in the direction of the small tavern with a complicated expression and sighed in his heart. "Thank you." In the depths of the imperial palace, around Taiji Palace, squads of golden guards were patrolling the area. In the imperial study of Taiji Palace, Du Ruhui and Fang Xianling sat restlessly with serious expressions on their faces. "Brother Fang, do you know why His Majesty summoned you?" Fang Xianling sipped his tea leisurely. After a moment of silence he said, "I don't know, but it must have something to do with Tubo's visit." Du Ruhui frowned. "Haven't we already discussed this matter? Don't tell me. His Majesty went to the tavern?" Fang Xianling didn't say anything. He just nodded lightly. No wonder. No wonder the Golden Guards are patrolling so intensely. His Majesty left the imperial palace again. Then according to what you said, it was the Emperor who summoned us outside. His Majesty has arrived. At this moment Xiao Gizi's shout came from outside the imperial study. The two hurriedly got up and knelt on the ground. These old officials Fang Xianling and Du Ruhui respectfully welcome His Majesty. You may rise. Li Shimin hurried into the imperial study. Behind him, Wei Zheng, Zhangsun Wuji, and Qing Yaojin stood with frosty expressions. After entering the imperial study, Li Shimin waved his hand and said, "Official Qing, take my token and personally guard the imperial study." Qing Yaojin also knew that he wouldn't understand if he was asked to participate in this matter. He hurriedly bowed and took the token from Li Shimin. This official will not let a single bug in. After that, Qing Yaojin left with a heart full of joy. After Li Shimin sat down, he waved his hand and gestured for everyone to sit down. He said, "This time, we've come to a conclusion about how to deal with Tubo. Wei Jing, tell them everything. Then we'll come up with a plan." "Yes." Wei Jing bowed and told them everything that had happened. This is what happened. Today we followed His Majesty out of the imperial palace and went to a small tavern. In the tavern, as Wei Jing explained, Fang Xianling and Du Ruhui were shocked. What kind of operation was this? Selling the blueprints to Tubo at a normal price? Wouldn't that benefit Tubo? How could they do such a thing? However, as Wei Jing spoke, the faces of the two men swiftly turned ghastly pale. When they heard that the Turks had entered another calamity, Fang Xianling was so agitated that his body trembled. He almost knelt down and asked for help. However, at this time Zhangsun Wuji pressed his hand and also joined in. Li Shimin was still excited when he heard it for the second time. Although this was the tavern keeper's plan, Li Shimin felt that if this plan was carried out, the Great Tang at that time would be something that all the other countries could only look up to. All the countries would come together. What kind of scene would it be? Li Shimin did not dare to think about it. After half an hour of explanation from Zhang Sun Wuji and Wei Zheng, Li Shimin looked at Fang Xianling and Du Ruhui, who were trembling with excitement, and said in a serious voice, "You know how serious today's matter is. If even a little bit of it is leaked out, it will bring a great disaster to the Tang Dynasty." The four were shocked. They hurriedly knelt down. "We will keep our mouths shut." Li Shimin waved his hand. "Now I want an answer." Chapter 87. The answer. Now Li Shimin's mind was in a mess. If this matter was really done according to Zhang Feng's words, although it sounded simple, it would not be so simple to actually do it. But if they did not do it, then what would happen? Now the situation was urgent. Otherwise, why would Tubo stay in Longyu Circuit for 10 days? Moreover, although the plague of locusts could be kept a secret for now, Li Shimin knew that in half a month's time, even if he wanted to hide it, he would not be able to. By then he did not know what would happen to the plague of locusts in Longyu Circuit. If these things were added, it would only make things worse for the Tang Dynasty. And this did not include the Tujue. Now if Tubo could have spies, what about Tuyuhan? Tujue? Shuiyantua? Li Shimin could not help but feel that the pressure of this matter had increased for no reason. At this moment, Fang Xianling and the others discussed for a while and said, "Your Majesty, after a discussion, we feel that now is not the time to ask for grain. Today Mr. Du and I have investigated the matter of Tubo and Tuyuhan again in detail. It is exactly as Zhang Feng said. Although I don't know where Zhang Feng got this information from, there is one thing that is true. If we ask for grain now, it will definitely cause trouble." The corner of Li Shimin's eyes twitched violently. "So, what do you mean?" "What I mean is that we should follow Zhang Feng's plan." At this point, Fang Xuanling's wrinkled face was trembling with excitement. In this way, Tubo and the others' covetous eyes will be removed and they will be reassured. When the time comes, Tuyuhan will definitely go to Tubo to investigate. And when the time comes, Tubo will definitely announce this in advance to stabilize the people. This way, after stabilizing the hearts of the people, Tubo will enter a period of mass production. At this time, the Tuyuhan will be anxious, and if the Turks want to make a move, they will definitely guess that we have a backup plan. They will also guess what we said to the envoy from Tubo. Are there any other deals? Li Shimin heard this. He nodded slightly. At this moment, Wei Jing also cupped his fists and said, "Secondly, if we do this, we will completely tie down the Tufan Empire. The Tufan Empire will definitely know that we have a backup plan. Moreover, even if the Tufan Empire makes a move, they will immediately intervene. Tuyuhan will also take this opportunity to show his loyalty. The most important thing." Zhang Sun Wuji's voice was hoarse. He said hurriedly, "If we do this, we will completely break the balance of the western region. And we can also send our envoys to the Turks' capital and put the bilateral trade on the agenda. In this way, Tubo won't know what agreement we have with the Turks, and the Turks won't know what agreement we have with Tubo and Tuyuhan." The more Li Shimin listened, the more excited he became. But then he frowned slightly. If this is the case, will the balance that Brother Zhang Feng mentioned work? Yes. Your Majesty, think about it. Can they make it? Without the little shopkeeper's guidance, who would have been able to make the key card slot settings for this thing? Wei Jing smiled confidently. This shopkeeper is really a genius. In this way we have completely grasped Tubo's lifeline. If he doesn't agree, then they will figure it out themselves. By the time they figure it out, they will have broken out in a large-scale civil war. Your Majesty, do you think that the higher-ups of Tubo will allow this? Li Shimin smiled. This was a good trap. If this was the case, then they would only invest more and more. By then, they would be completely reduced to the cheap labor of the Tang Dynasty. They would get their food first. When the locust plague broke out, they would be short of food again. At this time, they could throw out the delicious food plan of the shopkeeper and make a lot of money again. Not only that, they could also directly transport their food to the Turks and exchange it for their top war horses. In this way, for the sake of their stomachs, even if Xieli and Tili tried to stop them, they would not be able to stop the tribes from starving. By then they would first exchange the horses, then the cows, sheep, and livestock. When they came to their senses, what would they dare to do? Would they still be warriors when they lost their war horses? By then the Turks would be the ones who should panic. The more he thought about it, Li Shimin became more excited. Then he waved his hand and said, "Send my order. Tomorrow morning, summon, Your Majesty." Wei Jing suddenly interrupted Li Shimin. A faint smile flashed across his face as he said, "Now is not the time." Why? Li Shimin and the others were a little confused. Wei Jing smiled mysteriously and said, Your Majesty, you don't have to rush to summon them now. Let them wait. When they are anxious we will talk about it. We will pretend that we don't know about this. Let this matter ferment for a while. By then, Li Shimin was speechless. However, the people around Wei Zheng could not help but take a step back. Too insidious. It was better to stay away from him. But why do I like this plan so much? Chapter 88. In the Honglu Temple. Tubo's envoy. Solons looked at the exquisite delicacies on the table and lost his appetite. He hurriedly grabbed the eunuch who came to deliver the food and asked, "Little eunuch, may I ask when His Majesty will summon us?" The little eunuch did not even lift his eyelids. He looked at Solons indifferently and said with a pout, "I don't know about this." As he spoke, the little eunuch was about to leave. However, at this moment, Solons gritted his teeth and took out a gold horseshoe from his pocket and secretly stuffed it into the little eunuch's hand. He said with a smile, "Little eunuch, I was reckless just now and didn't know the rules. Take this, it's my filial piety to you." The little eunuch's eyelids twitched. He glanced at the gold in his hand and hurriedly stuffed it into his embroidered robe. Then he smiled like a chrysanthemum. "Oh, envoy, look at you. Aren't you spending a lot of money? Fine. Since you said so, I'll accept it. To be honest, it seems that His Majesty has been busy with court affairs these days and has no time to care about this." As he spoke, his face was full of embarrassment. He kept rubbing his hands in his hands. How could Solons not understand? He hurriedly stuffed another gold horseshoe into the eunuch's hand and said, "Then, I hope you can help me pass the message. After this I, Tubo, will definitely reward you handsomely." "Hee, no problem, no problem." The little eunuch weighed the weight of the gold horseshoe in his hand and smiled even wider. "Then if that's the case I'll go and arrange it for you." "Thank you, little eunuch. You may stop." Seeing the little eunuch leave, the smile on Solons's face disappeared without a trace. "Brother Solons, it's just a little eunuch. Why do you have to spend so much money?" Someone complained with dissatisfaction. Solons waved his hand and said, "Sauron, you don't understand. You know how important this matter is to me, Tubo. It's already been 3 days. His Majesty, the Tang Emperors, still have no intention of summoning us. Aren't you worried? Do you know that at least 100 people in Tubo die of hunger every day? Aren't you worried?" Upon hearing this, the brawny man named Sauron threw away the wine pot in his hand and coldly snorted. "I think those Tang Emperors are just stingy. Our sincerity is already so obvious. What else does he want? Could it be that he's still angry because of what happened in Longyu Road?" Solons glared at the brawny man, pointed at Suaio and said, "Now we are in the Tang Dynasty. You have to be careful in everything you do and everything you say. Today you will supervise Sauron and make him copy 100 times. Big brother." Solons glanced coldly at Sauron. Sauron had no choice but to swallow his words. "Suaio, I have a bad premonition. If this matter is really as the state preceptor said, and the Tang Emperors want our food, then it shouldn't be, right?" Suaio nimbly put his ear to the bed and listened. After seeing that no one was eavesdropping, he said, "I think it shouldn't be. If the Tang Emperors really wanted to do this, they would have brought it up that day. And that night, Crown Prince Li Qingqian didn't even mention a word about this matter. It can be seen that they were also discussing this matter. Although the drought in Tubo is serious, they don't know the specifics. If they really want food, then we can only do this." While speaking, Suaio took out a long firecracker from his arms and weighed it in his hand. Solon slightly nodded. At this time, the little eunuch who had just left hurriedly returned. "Mr. Envoy Solons, I have just inquired about it. Regarding this matter, I have already sent out the 2 horseshoes you just rewarded me with. I also sent out some personal belongings." Without waiting for him to finish speaking, how could Solons not know what he was going to say? He took out 3 pieces of horseshoe gold from his arms and handed them to the little eunuch with both hands. "Eunuch has spent a lot of money. I don't know what eunuch has asked." The little eunuch didn't hide it this time. He took the horseshoe gold and bit it in his mouth, then put it into his arms with satisfaction. The eyelids of the people in Tubo twitched as they watched. After the little eunuch finished tidying up, he said, "I just went to Taiji Palace, which is where the emperor handles his daily affairs. Little Gizi already knows about this matter, but he doesn't seem to have the intention to disturb His Majesty." "Doesn't want to disturb? Damn it, it's because the money is too little." Solons suppressed the anger in his heart. He could only search his body, then reluctantly took a pure gold scimitar inlaid with colorful gems from his belt and handed it over with both hands. "Little eunuch, this scimitar was personally bestowed by the emperor. It is inlaid with the best gems from the western region, as well as 10 pieces of horseshoe gold. I hope." Without waiting for him to finish, the little eunuch snatched it from his hands. His smile was filled with joy. "I know about this matter. With these things, the emperor will definitely know about this matter tonight. I hope that all the envoys will have a good rest and wait for the good news." After he finished speaking, the little eunuch hurriedly left. The corners of his mouth were about to reach his ears. As soon as he went out, he turned a corner. He saw little Gizi, who was waiting by Li Shimin's side, looking at the little eunuch with a playful expression. The little eunuch hurriedly knelt on the ground and took out all the things he had received from his arms. "Sir, these are all bestowed to me by them. I don't have a single cent." "Enough." Little Gizi looked indifferently at the horseshoe gold on the tray next to him, took out a piece and threw it to him. "Since they are stupid and rich, then you can do as you see fit from now on. Tomorrow morning the emperor will summon them. It's not that I don't sympathize with you, but how much you can get depends on your own ability." Chapter 89. The next morning. It was obvious that there were more soldiers patrolling Chang and city than usual. In the imperial city, teams of imperial guards stood straight and marched in an orderly manner. Bursts of roars filled every corner of the imperial city. On the road from Honglu Temple to the political announcement hall, teams of Jinwu guards were holding long spears with stern faces and looking arrogantly into the distance. Clang, clang, clang. The morning bell rang 3 times. The eunuch's voice spread all the way from the political announcement hall. "Announce, Tubo's envoy Solons seeks an audience with the emperor." "Announce, Tubo's envoy Solons seeks an audience with the emperor." "Announce, Tubo's envoy Solons seeks an audience with the emperor." At first it was a qualified messenger who was announcing. However, as they got farther and farther away from the imperial city, all the Jinwu guards roared at this time. Their voices reverberated in the imperial city. At this time, Solons and the others who were waiting at the side door were frightened by this lineup. They were scared silly. However, they could only bite the bullet and hurried forward with their heads lowered. They couldn't retreat. If they were timid at this time and retreated, then the situation would change. Even if they returned to Tubo, only death would await them. However, Solons and the others were in a more difficult situation at this time. When they came, in order to promote Tubo, they were wearing jewelry. Even their crowns were made of pure gold. The buttons and belts on their bodies were all made of pure gold and embellished with top-grade gems. But now, there was not a single gem on their bodies. There was not a single golden thread to be seen. Even their crowns were made of coarse cloth. Li Shimin noticed this scene the moment Solons and the others stepped into the political announcement hall. He couldn't help but glance at little Gizi and saw that there were more gems on his belt. Li Shimin instantly understood something. He didn't take it to heart. "Envoy Solons pays his respects to His Majesty the Tang Emperors. May your Majesty live a long and healthy life." All right, you may rise." Li Shimin was in a great mood. He waved his hand and said, "These days I have been thinking about how to help Tubo's neighboring countries. However, you also know that my Longyu Dao is suffering from a drought. Now, I have gathered all the skilled craftsmen and resources of the Tang Dynasty and used them all in Longyu Dao." Was there no hope? A hint of disappointment flashed across Solons's eyes. However, at this moment, Li Shimin's tone suddenly changed. "But the Tang Dynasty is a nation of friendship. Tubo and my Tang Dynasty are neighbors and friends. Therefore, I have decided to part with my treasure and sell the secret formula to Tubo." Li Shimin emphasized the word, sell. After Li Shimin said this in the court, Fang Xianling, Wei Zheng, and the others couldn't help but feel nervous. When Li Shimin said that he would sell out, Solons and the others couldn't help but feel relieved. It could be sold. That would be the best. What they were most worried about was that Li Shimin would ask for food at this time. However, now it seemed that they had thought too much. The emperor of the Tang Dynasty was very benevolent. Solons couldn't help but kneel down excitedly and say, "Thank you, Your Majesty the Tang Emperors, for saving our lives. My king said that if the Tang Dynasty can save our Tubo in time of crisis, our Tubo will definitely reward you greatly after the crisis is over." Wait. At this time, Wei Jing narrowed his eyes and took a step forward. He and Li Shimin looked at each other and then said, "Sir Envoy, please accept my offer. Since this matter has been settled, let's proceed according to the previous trade. His Majesty is merciful. As for what will happen in the future, we can forget about it. What do you think?" What? Solons and the others were shocked. This was really so easy? So easy to negotiate with? Didn't they say that Li Shimin was an old fox? How could he be so easy to negotiate with this time? Moreover, it was the most famous Wei Zheng of the Tang dynasty who came in person? Could it be that they really want to help Tubo? Was my king thinking too much? Solon's eyes turned and he hurriedly bowed again. Thank you, your majesty. Li Shimin waved his hand. Forget it, forget it. I am very gratified to be able to help you. Li Shimin's heart was very excited at this time. Was this the most exciting time? After Li Shimin finished acting tough, he waved his hand and said, but I don't know about the negotiation. My dear envoy Wei, you are fully in charge of this matter in this hall. After all, Tubo's allies are in urgent need. Don't delay any longer. How could Wei Zheng not understand Li Shimin's meaning? He bowed and said, yes, your majesty. Then I will give the price to Tubo envoy. While they were talking, Wei Zheng took out a piece of paper with a serious face and handed it to Solon's. This is the price of this blueprint. Do you know how much the Tang dynasty spent to develop this thing? You have seen the real thing. You know better than me how effective it is. Then I will not waste any time. Take a look at the price I have set. If there is no problem, then we are done. While speaking, Wei Zheng handed the paper in his hand to Solon's. Solon's took the paper and thanked him repeatedly. He hurriedly opened it. But the next moment, his eyes froze. This is impossible. Chapter 90. What's wrong? Let me see. Seeing Solon's body trembling, Suao hurriedly took the paper from his hands. Everyone could not help but gather around. They saw that the paper was densely packed with things that they could not understand. And behind these things there was a quote. What iron share quoted 3 million taels. Golden Jinan quoted 90 million taels? What was even more ridiculous was that it actually used gold as well as top-grade jade and gemstones. How many? What was this? They had seen these things before. This thing was made of pure wood. At most, it was mixed with some copper and iron. How could there be a need for a golden thread? Where was the use of golden Jinan? Where was the use of jade? Tubo and the rest could not help but have their faces turn black. Lord Wei, may I ask what is this golden Jinan used for? When Wei Zheng heard this, he did not even lift his eyelids and said, this is the core part. It must be made of golden Jinan. Then the iron share? What is this? We have seen this water wheel before. May I ask where is the iron share pressed? This? Wei Zheng also choked. Which damn person wrote this? Wei Zheng glanced at Zhang Sun Wuji. Zhang Sun Wuji pretended not to see anything. He touched his nose and pretended to whisper to the people around him. Wei Zheng was speechless. This thing is confidential. I have no right to say it. But after you get the blueprint, you will understand. Then, this jade and gemstones, may I ask Lord Wei, where should these things be inlaid? Solon's face was distorted. And Wei Zheng's old face could not help but turn slightly red. Cough, cough. Li Shimin was a little flustered and coughed. This thing was made by Zhang Sun Wuji. This grandson, he was too good at bragging, right? Zhang Sun Wuji's body trembled. He could only say embarrassedly, this matter was supervised by old man. And all the water wheels are basically made by old man himself. These things must be ground into powder and then sealed up. Otherwise, do you think an ordinary water wheel can have the same effect as this one? Solon's was dumbfounded. Could it be that these things were mixed into the water when it was built? However, this thing seems to be made by us, right? You only gave me a blueprint, right? It turned out that they were trying to extort money. Thinking of this, Solon smiled faintly and said, thank you for telling me. I already know about this matter. You only need to leave the manufacturing to us. Then may I ask the price of the blueprint? Huh. Understood? That would make things easier. Zhang Sun Wuji's eyes narrowed into slits. He stretched out his palm indifferently. They had planned all of this in advance. Therefore, the current price was just to see what they could afford. Since this was the case, that would make things easier. Solon's looked at Zhang Sun Wuji's palm and exchanged glances with the group of envoys. He then asked cautiously, Lord Zhang Sun said 5,000 taels? Oh, damn it. This old fox. How could Solon's not know Zhang Sun Wuji? This person came from the military camp. He was cunning and good at attacking people's minds. This time he finally saw it for himself. Finally, Solon's took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, did Lord Zhang Sun say 5 million taels? This price. Wrong. I said 50 million taels. Zhang Sun Wuji withdrew his hand indifferently and patted his chest, saying, the Tang Dynasty spent more than 50 million taels on this blueprint. This price is already the emperor taking pity on you all. If you all want it. Solon's heard this. His eyes flashed rapidly. 50 million taels. This price was worth it. This price was more than 10 times lower than the price set by Tufan kings when they came here. Solons couldn't help but clench his fist with a firm look. Then it's a deal. Thank you, Your Majesty. Wait. The corners of Zhang Sun Wuji's mouth twitched slightly. Under the astonished gazes of the crowd, he calmly said 2 words. Gold. When these 2 words were said, even Li Shimin almost stumbled. Too shameless. He was too shameless. 50 million taels of gold? But I like it. At this time, Tubo's envoy was completely petrified. After a while, Solons's chest rose and fell violently and he came to his senses. He said word by word, Lord Zhangsun, isn't it a bit inappropriate for you to do this? Do you really think I, Tubo, am a fool? You actually asked for 50 million taels of gold for a blueprint? Don't you have any shame? Do you know that if I were to take this 50 million taels of gold to India, the people of India, even if they were to mobilize the entire country's strength, they would be able to carry an endless supply of water for me? Also, Your Majesty, aren't you going to do something about it? It's too much. If I, Tubo, could afford it, I wouldn't have to do this. This. Li Shimin smacked his lips twice and said, I don't know how much this thing should be worth. After all, I've allocated 100 million taels of gold for this thing. Li Shimin simply raised the price again. How could the officials who had been dumbfounded this entire time not know that the emperor, his eldest grandson, and Wei Zheng were putting on an act? They couldn't help but blame Tubo. Then Tubo's people waved their hands fiercely and said, Your Majesty, this price is too high. We can't accept it. If Your Majesty is really willing to help me, Tubo, how about we discuss it separately and discuss it again in 3 days? Chapter 91. In fact, Li Shimin was a little worried. He was about to ask if it should be lowered a little. If Tubo was irritated, it would be difficult. But he hadn't said anything, and this guy actually asked for a discussion? So there was a chance. Good. I think so too. Since both of you have disputes, I've decided that after 3 days, you all will discuss this matter in the political announcement palace. After all, Tubo's friends also need this thing to save their lives. Wei Jing, Zhang Sun Wuji, Fang Xianling, and Du Ruhui listened to the decree. I accept the decree. I order the 4 of you to work out a suitable price in 3 days. Don't make things difficult for Tubo. Yes. I obey the decree. Then the court is dismissed. While talking, with his hands clasped behind his back, Li Shimin slowly left with a majestic gait. And everyone knelt down to see him off. See you off, Your Majesty. In the imperial study of Taiji Palace, Li Shimin looked at the list in his hand with a serious face and asked, Zhang Sun, isn't 50 million taels a little high? Zhang Sun Wuji heard this and hurriedly got up. Your Majesty, don't worry about this matter. I don't think we need much in this matter. Li Shimin narrowed his eyes. Why do you say so? Because today he didn't refuse immediately. Your Majesty, I actually know a little about Tubo's matter. If the Tufan kings didn't give this price, they would definitely turn around and leave today. But they didn't, which means they will definitely send a pigeon back to report tonight. This subject feels that this matter is a success. It was rare that Wei Jing also said so at this time. Li Shimin had no choice but to put his heart at ease. He was afraid that if this matter was out of control, then the chicken would fly away and the eggs would be lost. Did they spend money on this blueprint? No. He didn't spend a single cent. Instead, he made a huge profit. This time, 50 million taels of gold would make them lower their guard against the Tang Dynasty. Then, thinking of this, Li Shimin waved his hand indifferently and said, You can do as you see fit. Remember, when you receive the money, send 1 million taels of silver and a big house to the young shopkeeper. As for the other money, don't mention it for now. Wait until he enters the palace in the future. 1 million taels is too much. Wei Jing said leisurely. What is it? Li Shimin was a little confused. If we take out 1 million taels of gold now, wouldn't that make little brother suspect our identities? And this thing really can't be sold for that much money. Hearing this, Li Shimin also felt that it was inappropriate. He pondered for a moment and said, You can decide on this matter. You should also pay more attention to Zhang Feng's matter. If it weren't for him, how could we be in this situation today? Everyone hurriedly bowed. We obey. Then Li Shimin left. After Li Shimin left, everyone couldn't help but laugh. That's so cool. By the way, Zhang Sun, old man, aren't you too wicked? How dare you write these things? Don't you feel ashamed? Old man was almost embarrassed to death? What a disgrace to a gentleman. Wei Jing was a little speechless. Zhang Sun Wuji smiled enigmatically. Don't you understand this matter? I don't believe it. Take a guess. If I didn't take out this thing, how could the mystery of this thing be created? Believe it or not, now they are definitely thinking hard about what kind of divine thing this thing is in Honglu Temple. Haha. Old man thinks that this is a good move. Du Ruhui stroked his white beard and shook his head. Brother Zhang Sun is right about this. From their reaction, we can see that the bottom line of these people is really more than 50 million gold. Old man thinks that this is too little. Zhang Sun Wuji glared at him. Old man, you think this is too little? Why don't you add a little more? You came back 3 days ago to talk about this? That's enough. If it hinders our future plans, then what? If he dares to object, old man Cheng will give him an axe. Fine. You're awesome. Everyone was speechless. However, after that, everyone's faces couldn't help but lament. If it weren't for Brother Zhang Feng this time, we would probably be in a terrible fix during this drought. When this is over, let's all submit a memorial and ask Brother Zhang Feng to come out of seclusion. How about it? Wei Jing stroked his beard and said. When everyone heard this, they couldn't help but nod. However, Du Ruhui hesitated. But His Majesty said that it's not the right time. But what's the right time? Isn't it tiring to do this? Also, His Majesty said that he would send the Crown Prince and the Princess to the tavern. What do you think? What do you think? As long as His Majesty sends them, then we should send them too. Wei Jing glanced at everyone and said, this kind of thing should wait until this matter is over. Yes, let's talk about it properly. Whether we want to invite Zhang Feng to the palace or not, we have to get His Majesty's approval first. Everyone fell silent. However, Zhang Feng, the god of wealth, was reserved for everyone. In fact, no one was willing to submit to anyone. At this time, the best way was to send their children to the tavern. However, it was up to Zhang Feng to decide what to do about this. Alright, let's disperse. Let's finish the matter at hand first. Chapter 92. Sunlight. Blinding sunlight. Although it was only May, the weather was as hot as a steamer roasting the earth. Meanwhile in Chang'an City, although it was not noon yet, the number of pedestrians on the streets had gradually decreased. The peddlers on both sides of the street were huddled in the shade listlessly, flapping their clothes. Hey, I say, do you know? I heard that His Majesty summoned Tubo's envoy yesterday. In front of a tea stall. Zhang Feng, who was lazily buying salt, was attracted by that sentence. He sat down, ordered a pot of tea and slowly listened. The man who spoke turned his eyes. When he saw that someone was listening, he could not help but raise his voice. Guess what I heard last night when I was working the night watch? What? Don't tell me that Tubo's envoy escaped last night. Haha. Someone could not help but make fun of the night watchman when they saw that he was being secretive. The night watchman was anxious. He glared at that person and bared his teeth. What nonsense are you talking about? Tubo is in big trouble this time. I heard that people are eating people now. What? When the crowd heard that, they could not help but perk up and quickly surrounded the night watchman. The night watchman slowly took a sip of tea and said, about that. It started 4 days ago. 4 days ago, His Majesty summoned Tubo's envoy. Tubo cried miserably about being poor. After that, His Majesty softened and agreed to help Tubo yesterday. However, have you heard of Wei Jing, Lord Wei? Tell us. Stop wasting time. Someone could not wait any longer. Zhang Feng could not help but raise his eyebrows. The night watchman continued, let's put it this way. At that time, guess what happened between Lord Wei Zheng and Lord Zhang Sun? His Majesty is soft-hearted, but who is Lord Wei? He is a selfless person. He asked for this amount of money in one go. As he spoke, the night watchman extended his hand. Everyone was shocked. How much is this? 500,000 taels? The night watchman smiled mysteriously, revealing a mouthful of yellow teeth. It's too little? Everyone was puzzled. How could this be considered little? How much would that be? Could it be 5 million taels? Oh my God. 5 million? This was impossible. I've never seen 10,000 taels in my entire life. How can a solution cost 5 million? Don't you agree? This thing was definitely impossible. In my opinion, the biggest possibility is that they want food. Aren't we short on food now? Wouldn't it be better to bring Tubo's grain over? Everyone started discussing again. However, in the end, everyone rejected the idea. No. Food was impossible. Now, Tubo was short of food and they were eating people. How could there be food? Chief Night Watchman Zhang, just say it. How much was it? What do you want? We are all insignificant commoners. How would we know what they want? Yeah. Just say it. The night watchman looked around suspiciously and said in a low voice, I heard from the brothers guarding the city gate that His Majesty gave them a blueprint. I heard that His Majesty received the blueprint from the heavens to help Longyu circuit during the drought. Lord Wei and Lord Zhangsun echoed each other and bid 50 million taels. This 50 million? F asterisk CK. That much? How many boxes would it take? F asterisk CK, that's a lot of money? Everyone was aghast. However, the night watchman wiped the sweat off his head and said mysteriously, that's what happened, but do you know what that 50 million taels is? What? Could it be food? At that moment, more and more people were attracted to the night watchman. Even the patrolling soldiers stopped to listen. They seemed to be getting impatient. The soldier took out a copper coin from his pocket and said, Chief Night Watchman Zhang, just say it. This cup of tea is on me. All right. Thank you very much, sir. The night watchman's eyes lit up. He grabbed the copper coin and happily put it away. At this moment he slowly said, This item is not grain or silver. Sirs, if it is gold, then I will give it to you. If it's gold, it's shiny gold. What? 50 million taels of gold? F asterisk CK, won't the Tang Dynasty be rich now? Bullsh asterisk T. The soldier's face turned pale. He did not know if it was true. He went back to his hometown to visit his wife yesterday and did not know about it. However, he could not help but be shocked when he heard it now. He hurriedly scolded, You night watchman. You lie to ghosts at night and people during the day. I'll arrest you and throw you in jail. The night watchman was even more anxious. He hurriedly begged for mercy, Sir, it's all true. As long as you go and ask around, you'll know. Look at the Rouge House over there. The news from there is all coming from the palace. If you don't believe me, you can ask around. Don't talk nonsense. If this is true, how can Tubo agree to it? If everyone spreads rumors like you, won't Chang and be in chaos again? Come with me to the district office. This matter? Zhang Feng shook his head slightly. He took out a copper coin from his embroidered robe and threw it on the table. Then he lazily left. Along the way he had heard too many such rumors. Could it be that the emperor had really thought of a way? But this method, why did it sound so familiar? Chapter 93. The news was spreading everywhere in Chang'an City. In the end, it was said that Tubo was going to attack Chang'an City. Just as the whole Chang'an City was engulfed in this rumor, a group of government soldiers arrived in a hurry and put up notices all over Chang'an City. The notice indicated that this was purely a rumor, and the matter slowly died down. However, the people who had just lived a good life were still in a state of panic. They were still whispering in twos and threes. There were even people who were crazily fighting for food and daily necessities. Even the place set up by the officials to sell official salt had countless more people than usual. Zhang Feng had a headache as he bought about 5 kilograms of salt. He was wondering if he should buy more when he saw Old Sun and Lao Li coming out of Yong and Lane in a hurry. The two of them seemed to be very serious and they were discussing something along the way. Lao Li's face was so dark that it was about to drip water. Zhang Feng scratched his head, feeling a little confused. But he still waved his hand. Hey, Lao Li, over here. Li Shimin, who was busy rushing, was stunned when he heard that. But the next moment when he saw Zhang Feng, his dark face softened a little. He went forward and clasped his fist. Zhang Feng looked at the two of them suspiciously. Are you being chased by thieves or something? Why do you look like that? Sigh. Li Shimin sighed deeply. Isn't that so? We were thinking about whether we should tinker with 1,000 more water wheels and sell them to the diplomatic mission. But then we heard that Tubo is going to attack. What should we do? All right. Li Shimin pulled Zhang Feng to the corner and asked, Didn't you say yesterday that this would work? Look at this Chang'an City. I might even lose my life here. Zhang Feng understood. He laughed and said, So it's about this. Go. Let's go to my shop. I just happened to come out today to buy some salt. Let's go back to the shop and I'll tell you everything in detail. When Li Shimin heard that, he signaled Zhang Sun Wuji with his eyes. Then she hooked her arms around Zhang Feng's neck and complained as they walked. On the other hand, Zhang Sun Wuji also subconsciously ordered the Jinwu guards hidden among the commoners to follow them in secret. At this moment, the golden guards with killing intent in their eyes put away their MO swords. Today they were discussing where the lowest price should be. However, he received a message from the Chamberlain of Dependencies. Last night, 2 members of the Tubo diplomatic mission secretly left Chang'an City. Then early this morning the news spread throughout Chang'an City. Li Shimin was originally very happy this morning. However, when the civil officials in the imperial court asked this question, Li Shimin was so angry that his face turned green. He was prepared to come out and listen to it personally before going to the Chamberlain of Dependencies. But on the way he met Zhang Feng, who came out to buy salt. Zhang Feng's tavern was not very far from here. It was just 2 turns away. As soon as he entered, Zhang Feng took out a bag of fried food wrapped in lotus leaves from the counter, and then opened a jar of wine. He said slowly, "Old Li, you're the best. About this, don't be anxious. I know you want to make money, but what about this? You have to take it slow. Don't be alarmed by a little rumor." Li Shimin was stunned and wanted to say something. Zhang Feng pressed his hand and said, "About this? I also heard that this is all a rumor. We can spread it. Do you think the Tubo people are fools? Then what do you plan to do? Could it be that this matter was really a misunderstanding? If that's the case, does it mean that we still have a chance?" Li Shimin was so worried about this that he pulled out a bunch of hair. If the rumor was true, then he had really screwed up. If he had known about this price, he would have just said a few words yesterday and the matter would have been settled. But now he was scared. Zhang Feng patted him on the shoulder and said, don't worry. Listen to my analysis. Think about this. Yesterday, I heard that Lord Zhang Sun and Lord Wei Zheng were going to cheat Tubo of 50 million taels of gold. I think this matter is too small." Li Shimin was dumbfounded. What kind of situation was this? You still want too little? Zhang Sun Wuji's mouth also twitched. This was too little? Then what was the proper amount? Zhang Feng said calmly, if Tubo really rejected this matter, then it wouldn't be spreading rumors and pressuring the emperor. Li Shimin was stunned. What? Zhang Feng chuckled. Let me ask you. If you want to buy something and the price is too high to the point that you can't accept it, will you do it? Then what's the point of doing it? Isn't this obviously bullying? Fi. Cough cough. Li Shimin slammed the table and blurted out. But just as he said the word, Zhang Sun Wuji coughed violently. Li Shimin then reacted and couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. If that's the case, then what's the point of doing it? I'll just turn around and leave. That's right. Zhang Feng clapped his hands and said, if you can think of this, why can't you think of this? Chapter 94. Understand? Li Shimin was stunned. However, Zhang Sun Wuji understood. He said in a low voice, are you saying that Lao Li is oblivious to the situation? Yes. That's the logic. Zhang Feng raised his wine glass and clinked it with the 2 of them. He said reluctantly, but this Zhang Sun Wuji is really a F***king talent. He's so F***king wretched. Hearing that, Zhang Sun Wuji's face turned red. He asked in a muffled voice, what do you mean? Take a guess. If I was in the imperial court yesterday, I would have given him a thumbs up. This guy dares to say 50 million, he must be a black-bellied master. I only know that Zhang Sun Wuji is the best at scheming, but I didn't expect him to team up with Wei Zheng like this. This effect. I heard all this at the entrance of the palace when I was having breakfast this morning. Zhang Feng was going to marinate some bacon today, so he went to the market early in the morning. When he passed by the entrance of the palace, he had a bowl of dumplings. In just a short while, he heard everything that happened in the palace yesterday. In addition, he wandered around Chang and city today and instantly understood the meaning behind it. You said that the price is going to be low. What's going on? Zhang Sun Wuji was a little lightheaded. To be praised by Zhang Feng, he was excited from the bottom of his heart. He couldn't help but become talkative. She held Zhang Feng's hand and called him little brother long and little brother short, which made Zhang Feng happy. Zhang Feng patted Zhang Sun Wuji on the shoulder and said, Zhang Sun Wuji and Wei Zheng are a little too cautious about this matter. Tubo is indeed in a difficult situation now, but I guarantee that his treasury must be very rich. So, I guess that when they left the imperial court yesterday, they left a backup plan. Hearing this, Li Shimin and Zhang Sun Wuji looked at each other. He had guessed correctly. Yesterday, Tubo really didn't make any promises. That meant there was room for negotiation. But now, could it be that they wanted to use the pressure of public opinion to make the Tang dynasty relent? Thinking of this, Li Shimin was furious. Brother Zhang Feng, what do you think will happen if His Majesty raises the price now? Zhang Feng shook his head. You can't add it now. Why? Zhang Sun Wuji and Li Shimin asked in shock. Because now that they've spread the news, it means that they're prepared for the worst-case scenario. The attack on Chang'an City is fake, but the attack on the Tang dynasty must be real. What? Li Shimin's face suddenly turned pale. Seeing this, Zhang Feng couldn't help but shake his head. Do you think it's so easy for countries to confront each other? It's like you doing business. What if you can't reach an agreement? Fight. Whoever loses will not only not have to pay, but also get some benefits for free. Who doesn't want to? Li Shimin was silent. The fists in his embroidered robe were tightly clenched. Fight. Or not. Seeing this, Zhang Feng was a little speechless. This is their business. You're just a little commoner. What are you worried about? Do you want to go to the battlefield and kill the enemy? I seriously doubt what you do, Lao Li. You're always so weird when it comes to these things. Let's not talk about this. You're uncomfortable. To put it bluntly, you're AB*TC. Zhang Feng rolled his eyes at Li Shimin. At this time Zhang Sun Wuji also lowered his head, but his shrugged shoulders showed that he was trying hard to suppress his laughter. Ahem. Li Shimin glared at Zhang Sun Wuji and said, well, you know. Fine. Zhang Feng was speechless. Every time he said this, Lao Li always thought that he was a businessman. If there was a war, it would affect him. He was tired of hearing such things. He waved his hand and did not lower himself to Li Shimin's level. We can't increase the price now. Instead, we have to lower the price a little. Why? Li Shimin's expression changed. Was he really going to admit defeat just like that? Although it was not easy for the Tang Dynasty to fight again, Li Shimin was not afraid. If anyone dared to do that, then what dignity would the Tang Dynasty have left? Seeing this, Zhang Feng was speechless. Can you let me finish? Why do I feel that you're like a little wife now? You're always so flustered? What's the matter? You're such a pervert. If I were that person in the current dynasty, I would lower the price by 5 million to 10 million gold taels. But this is not the end. This is only the first step. We have to put him in a trap. My disciple once said something. I don't know if you've heard it before. What is it? Who's your disciple? Li Shimin and Zhang Sun Wuji's eyes lit up and asked in unison. Zhuge. Zhang Feng spread his hands. Retreat in order to advance. We'll take a step back now, but they'll be proud of it and spread the word for us everywhere. When the time comes, This, Li Shimin suddenly remembered what Zhang Feng said earlier. He hurriedly said, you're saying that you want to use them to trap the Tuyuhun? Sai. What do you mean by trap? That's not nice to hear. It's like this. Zhang Feng smiled slyly, but his expression suddenly became serious. This small step today is to take a big step forward in the future. Chapter 95. Taking a small step backward? Taking a big step forward for the future? This was, Li Shimin was shocked. Zhang Sun Wuji was also shocked. His blood was boiling. What kind of situation was it that he could come up with such a sentence? Brother Zhang Feng, this is what you said? Yes, I thought of it by chance. It's nothing. Come, let's drink. Zhang Feng said evasively. Then he changed the topic. This was not something that he came up with. If he had the ability, why would he be here? This was all because of the commercials in the future. Zhang Feng subconsciously raised his head and looked at the sky and the moon outside the window. Let's not talk about this anymore. Let's continue talking about this matter. Although we have taken a step back in this matter, everything that we did when they were in danger in the future, no matter what we do, it will not be us who let Tubo down. When that time comes, it will be them who asked for it. What do you mean? Li Shimin's eyes flickered. Because, Zhang Feng stood up. He picked up his wine bowl and walked to the window. Looking at the glaring sunlight outside the window, he said calmly, if I were anyone in the current dynasty, I would not even ask for money. However, if they are still bargaining about the food, then they are really shameless. We will just chase them out and do whatever they want. This, Li Shimin hurriedly asked, isn't this a little too much? Too much? Have you told me? Haven't we already given in? We have already given in. If they continue to be so shameless, then the Tufan kings won't feel embarrassed? If they are shameless, then why should we give them face? When the time comes, we will just ignore them and do whatever they want. The one who will suffer is Tubo, not us. What's there to be afraid of? It made sense. In an instant, all the doubts in Li Shimin's heart disappeared. If that's the case, we'll take a step back with the help of this rumor. But if we take a step back, we won't be too soft-hearted when it comes to food in the future. Since they were the ones who sought death first, what was there to be afraid of? At that time, if a war really broke out, he would have to think twice. And this wasn't just Tuyuhun. As long as this matter got out, Tuyuhun would definitely come to ask for help. The only people he could ask for help were the Turks. However, the Turks lacked food. At this time, if they asked the Turks for help, they were not stupid. The Turks were definitely more ruthless than the Tang Dynasty. Because this matter had already spread, he could not deny it even if he wanted to. When the time came, he could only obediently come back and ask for help from the Tang Dynasty. After thinking it through, Li Shimin's mood calmed down. He patted Zhang Feng's shoulder excitedly and said with a complicated look in his eyes, "Sometimes, I really don't understand what kind of person you are." Not only does he have such a clear and sharp understanding of the current situation, but he also knows how to rule a country like this, playing everyone in the palm of his hand. "Who exactly are you?" Zhang Feng heard this. He was amused. "I've said it before. I'm a cultivator." "Stop." Li Shimin knew that he was going to talk nonsense, so he speechlessly interrupted him. He picked up a bean and threw it into his mouth, crunching it. "Brother Zhang Feng, I really want to help you. After doing business for so many years, I know a lot of officials, big and small. And now, I basically know a few in the court. And maybe when the emperor is happy, he will summon me. Just tell me, what official position do you want?" At this time, Zhang Sun Wuji put down the wine bowl and looked straight at Zhang Feng. "This is the emperor's order. Little brother, your chance is here." However, he could only be anxious in his heart. He did not dare to say it out loud. Since the emperor did not want to reveal his cards at this time, he could not say anything more. Zhang Feng was also a little moved at this time. He could not stay in this small tavern forever. Once the system was activated, he would definitely walk out of this small tavern. Otherwise, he would have already opened this small tavern and made it popular. A few modern dishes would be enough to charm people, let alone other things. But he also knew that he was not cut out for business. The reason why he opened this small tavern was, on the one hand, to wait for the system. On the other hand, it was also because he could chat with Lao Li and others. Although Chang and city seemed to be prosperous, he was nothing except for being eloquent. If he really did it, or entered the undercurrent of the court without the protection of a golden finger, a person like him who had no status and background would not be able to live for more than a year. Therefore, after thinking about it, Zhang Feng still shook his head. "I haven't thought about it yet." While talking, Zhang Feng filled Li Shimin and Zhang Sun Wuji's cups and waved his hand coolly. "This matter, forget it. Let's talk about it when I have thought about it. The time is not right yet. If one day I decide to mix in the court or do business, I will definitely let you know." Li Shimin heard this and could only shake his head helplessly. "That's fine. Since you said so, I won't force you. This matter has to be done slowly. We still have a long way to go. But there is one thing." Li Shimin raised his cup and said, "If you are successful in the future, don't forget me." Chapter 96. Zhang Feng waved his hand again and again. "Fine. Are you Lao Li looking down on me? Am I that kind of person?" Li Shimin smiled and clinked his wine bowl with Zhang Feng. He put down his wine bowl and asked with a frown, "Based on your ability, there are so many rich businessmen in Chang and city who are willing to partner with you. I, Lao Li, estimate that if you want to line up, you can at least line up outside Chang and city, right? Why do you?" Zhang Feng rolled his eyes and waved his hand. "Since you said so, I really have to tell you. There are indeed many famous businessmen in Chang and city. If I want to be an official, with your help, I will certainly live a good life. But you only know one thing and not the other. Is there something you can't tell me?" Li Shimin motioned Zhang Feng to continue. Zhang Feng smacked his lips, grabbed a piece of food and threw it into his mouth. He said, "On the one hand, now is indeed not the right time. I can't say for sure. But on the other hand, as you can see, I am used to being lazy. I definitely can't do business." "Speaking of business, aren't we partners now?" Li Shimin smiled and didn't say anything. Zhang Feng continued, "In the past 6 months, I know what kind of person you are, Lao Li. Although sometimes you are very stubborn, your character is really impeccable. You are a trustworthy person. I don't feel at ease if I find someone else, and I don't have the time to understand them. Only you, Lao Li, have a good temper. Secondly, you also know that my willingness can't be bought with money." Hearing that, Li Shimin was inexplicably touched. Since he became the king of Qin, everyone was respectful to him and obeyed his orders. He was also a human being. He was also a person with feelings. If others were depressed, they could find someone else, but who could he find? This was not the main point. Most importantly, in the end, he realized that none of the people around him were truly trustworthy. He had become a loner in this life. It wasn't until half a year ago when he walked into this inconspicuous pub that he slowly made friends with Zhang Feng. At this moment, Li Shimin had an illusion. Being treated as a close friend by Zhang Feng seemed to be a very happy thing. Involuntarily, Li Shimin and Zhang Feng clinked their glasses and drank a full bowl. Come. Brother Zhang Feng, for this let's toast." As he spoke, Li Shimin pulled Zhang Feng and drank the wine in the bowl until not a single drop was left. That warm atmosphere made Zhang Sun Wuji's eyeballs pop out of their sockets. He was completely dumbfounded. Was the emperor drunk? Or am I seeing things? Since when did the emperor become so approachable and easy to get along with? Although the emperor had been very approachable to them all these years, there was still a limit to how much he could treat them. However, his attitude was different from Zhang Feng's. The emperor treated Zhang Feng as his closest and best brother. It seemed that this little shopkeeper had really hit the jackpot. Young man, you have a bright future to be able to gain the emperor's favor. At this moment, the two of them put down their wine bowls. Zhang Feng cheered loudly. Then he shouted loudly, "When the wine is served, don't stop drinking. Cooking sheep and slaughtering cattle for pleasure, must drink 300 cups at once. Life must be full of joy. Don't let the golden goblet be empty to the moon. I am born to be useful. Money will come back after it is spent." Zhang Feng was excited and slowly recited the poem, "When the wine is served." Li Shimin was also shocked, although he had never heard of this poem. But this poem and the mood of these few lines made him involuntarily hum along. Zhang Sun Wuji quickly got up and poured wine for Li Shimin and Zhang Feng. The two of them looked at each other and laughed loudly. Zhang Feng suddenly raised his voice by another syllable. "When the wine is served, don't stop drinking. I will sing a song with you, please listen to me. Bells and drums are not expensive, I hope you will be drunk and never wake up. Since ancient times, sages have been lonely, only those who drink will leave their names. Colorful horses and golden coats will be exchanged for good wine, and with you, we will share the worries of eternity." The voice fell. But at this time, the three people in the small tavern were completely ignited by this poem. Although until now, Zhang Feng still didn't say why he didn't want to enter the imperial court as an official and why he didn't do business to expand his business, this poem already contained a lot. As the last sentence fell, Li Shimin and Zhang Sun Wuji's eyes were filled with tears of excitement. Who hasn't been young and frivolous? Who hasn't wanted to travel the world with a sword? They had all experienced wars of blood and fire. At this moment, because of a poem, they actually felt a kind of unprecedented freedom and straightforwardness. Good wine. Good poem. Li Shimin excitedly patted Zhang Feng's shoulder and drank another big bowl of wine with him. Then Li Shimin's heart warmed up. He grabbed Zhang Feng's arm and said, "Good brother, since this is the case as your brother, I won't force you. But no matter if you become an official or do business in the future, I will support you." Good. Zhang Feng nodded heavily. "Lali, this is what I like the most about you, you care about your feelings. Even if you didn't say it today, I would have done it. In the future if I have a bite to eat, Zhang Feng will not forget you, Laoli. Good. Good brother." Li Shimin's heart warmed up. He grabbed Zhang Feng's hand and pulled him out. "Let's go. Follow your brother to become sworn brothers." Chapter 97. Cough cough. Cough cough cough. Zhang Sun Wuji was shocked. His Majesty wanted to become sworn brothers with him? What kind of game was this? Was His Majesty drunk? He hurriedly coughed to remind him. Seeing that there was no reaction, Zhang Sun Wuji hurriedly raised his wine bowl and said, "Lao Li, if you want to become sworn brothers, there's no need to rush. You should hire a master to calculate your birth characters and then choose a good day, right? Come. Brother Zhang Feng, old son, propose a toast to you. You said that taking a step back is to take a big step forward. That's great." As he spoke, Zhang Sun Wuji blocked Li Shimin and then pulled Zhang Feng. This move surprised Li Shimin and he quickly remembered the purpose of today's meeting. He smiled embarrassedly and said, "Old son is right. I'm drunk. Come, let's continue." Zhang Feng was stunned. But he didn't care. Seeing Zhang Sun Wuji raise his wine bowl, Zhang Feng also raised his bowl and said dizzily, "Okay. Everything is in the wine. Drink." As they spoke, the three of them clinked their glasses. Zhang Sun Wuji hurriedly changed the topic. "Brother Zhang Feng, just now you said that if Tufan can't produce it, and if we ask for food at this time, they might settle the score with us afterwards. How do we solve this?" When Li Shimin heard this, the excitement in his heart was instantly extinguished. They were too naive just now. Now that Zhang Sun Wuji said this, there really was a problem. "That's right, brother. If we do this, won't we be helping them? Tubo is a pack of wolves." Li Shimin was also anxious. Zhang Feng smiled faintly. "Take it slow. About this. I said you guys are stupid, but you guys really aren't smart. You can't think of this, but the current emperor can. Could the emperor have thought of this?" Li Shimin couldn't help but blush. "It would be great if we could think of that." "All right. When Zhang Feng saw their dumbfounded expressions, he knew that they really didn't expect this. He smiled mysteriously and said, "Let me sort this out for you. If right now Lao Li is the emperor and old son you can be Zhang Sun Wuji. If you were the two of them, how would you solve this problem?" The two of them looked at each other, their eyes filled with shock. If I were that person, if I knew that they were plotting against me, I would definitely not give them craftsmen. Li Shimin thought for a while and finally nodded firmly. Perhaps this was the best way to deal with it. Zhang Sun Wuji thought for a while and nodded in the end. When Zhang Feng saw this, he was a little speechless. "You guys really aren't cut out to be officials. Don't you understand the meaning of what I said before? Let me put it this way," Zhang Feng said frankly, "if I were the current emperor, not only would I still give craftsmen, but I would also send out all the people that the Tang Dynasty can send out. However, it's up to His Majesty to decide who to send out." At this point, Zhang Feng smiled meaningfully. Li Shimin also suddenly understood. He slapped his thigh and said, "I understand now. You mean His Majesty will disguise the soldiers and spies as craftsmen and then—" "Yes. F***ck oldly, you're finally enlightened." Zhang Sun Wuji also understood. Now, everything that Zhang Feng said before suddenly became clear. He finally understood why Zhang Feng still helped Tubo when he knew that Tubo's people had bad intentions. And there was also that sentence, "Today's retreat is a big step forward for the future." Now he finally understood. It turned out that every word that Zhang Fengshan said was a trap. Li Shimin was a little caught off guard by this trap. Even Zhang Sun Wuji, who was good at scheming, couldn't help but have a fine layer of cold sweat on his forehead after he figured it out. Damn it. What kind of freak genius is this? Freak genius? What a freak genius. Otherwise, who could actually destroy an entire country in a simple conversation? What the F***ck? If Zhang Feng wasn't from the Tang Dynasty, then what the F***ck? Was this really God's blessing for the Tang Dynasty? Phew. Li Shimin was so excited that his whole body was trembling. All the things that he didn't understand before were finally understood now. Li Shimin couldn't help but salute and say solemnly, "Brother Zhang Feng, the Tang Dynasty is really lucky to have you in the Tang Dynasty." Don't mess around. The Tang Dynasty has a sea of talents. Who do I think I am? Even if I don't say it now, just wait and see. With the current emperor's talent, he will definitely think so far ahead. Besides, he has the scheming Zhang Sun Wuji, Wei Jing, Fang Xianling, Du Ruhui and others by his side. They are all God's favored sons. Li Shimin couldn't listen to it anymore. Zhang Sun Wuji buried his head deep into his arms. His face was red. It was too embarrassing. How could he be so mean? The two of them couldn't stay any longer. Li Shimin hurriedly saluted. "Brother Zhang Feng, thank you for clearing my doubts today. Now I can do business in peace." As he spoke, he grabbed a handful of silver ingots from his arms and threw them on the table, saying, "I still have something to do, so I'll stop here today. Let's talk next time." Okay. Zhang Feng didn't stand on ceremony. He saluted and said, "I happen to be making salt today. Let's continue next time. Take care, I won't see you out." As if thinking of something, Zhang Feng hurriedly shouted, "Lao Li, don't mess around with this matter. Stay calm. It'll be terrible if it gets out." As he spoke, Li Shimin and Zhang Sun Wuji hurriedly left. Zhang Feng put away the silver ingots, carried the oiled paper bag and slowly walked into the kitchen. Chapter 98. When Li Shimin heard that, he staggered and almost fell to the ground. Looking at the slowly closing door of the tavern, he was so angry that he laughed. Am I really such an impulsive person? Zhang Sun Wuji did not speak. His face was tense, but his face was flushed red. Li Shimin glared at Zhang Sun Wuji. That emperor's aura made Zhang Sun Wuji tremble. He hurriedly said, "Your Majesty, I didn't laugh. Really, I promise. I didn't laugh." "Come on. Brother Zhang Feng, do you think this method will work? Will it go for wool and come back shorn?" Li Shimin ignored Zhang Sun Wuji and asked worriedly. Zhang Sun Wuji took a long time to stop laughing. His face slowly became serious. He was a little guilty about this matter. If it was not handled properly, it would really be a loss. Now, the Tang Dynasty had finally entered a rare period of recuperation. If they raised a tiger because of this matter, it would really not be worth the loss. Thinking of this, Zhang Sun Wuji said, "I think there shouldn't be a problem with this. The problem is whether the people we send are loyal or not. If we look at it from a military perspective, this method is indeed effective." Really? Li Shimin was a little silent. He was not afraid of war. In fact, he was looking forward to it. However, the current situation made it impossible for him to fight. That was why Li Shimin was so worried. If they fought this war now, the taxes that the Tang dynasty had just reduced would skyrocket again. The people could not bear such a torment. Besides, they had only just begun to treat the drought in Longyu Circuit. While they could see the effects, they weren't too obvious yet. If they were to start a war now, it wouldn't benefit Great Tang in the slightest. On the contrary, it might even lead to its downfall. The more he thought about it, the more worried Li Shimin became. When he raised his head, the Vermilion Bird Gate was already right in front of him. However, at this moment, Li Shimin suddenly remembered what Zhang Feng had said before he left. He could not help but ask, "Zhang Sun, do you still remember what brother Zhang Feng said when we left?" "What did he say?" "No." Zhang Sun Wuji said subconsciously, but before he could finish he continued, "I remember that he said he wanted to make salt." "Making salt? He can make salt?" Zhang Sun Wuji also recovered. His two exclamations made Li Shimin shiver. Making salt? Li Shimin was shocked. He never thought that this Zhang Feng also knew how to make salt. Wasn't salt cured by the salt-making division? Didn't he just go to buy salt? Why is he still making salt? Li Shimin was a little confused. However, based on his understanding of Zhang Feng, this guy was definitely not that simple. Li Shimin could not help but wave his hand and say, "Let's not talk about this for now. Next time we go we'll ask him properly. Do you think he has a different way of making salt? Just like the worm eggs and the strange things that we've been eating during this period of time. How much does he know?" About this, Zhang Sun Wuji also hesitated. This Zhang Feng was a mystery. He could always make some strange things such as the wine and the fried locusts. In the past, who would dare to eat worm eggs? But now, in the entire Chang'an city, this toy had become a sought-after toy for the rich. However, just a few days ago he actually made some roasted mutton skewers. This thing made Zhang Sun Wuji drool. No matter how he went back and asked the chef to make it, he could not make it taste like what he wanted. Now they heard another novel thing. This time the two of them were stunned. Now, salt in the Tang dynasty was basically a luxury item. Many people could not afford it. However, he clearly saw Zhang Feng go to buy salt. Could it be that he could still make some other tricks? Li Shimin and Zhang Sun Wuji could not help but have a look of shock in their eyes. Let's not talk about it. Let's go back to the palace and finish the things at hand. Li Shimin thought hard and said, "If Zhang Feng can really make something good at this critical time, I think the situation in the Tang dynasty will change." Pass down the order. Ask Wei Zheng and the others to quickly enter the palace. Li Shimin did not think too much. Then he waved his hand and the sedan, surrounded by the Jin Wu guards, entered the Vermilion Bird Gate. In the imperial study, there were many more guards than usual. Cheng Yaojin moved a stool and sat at the door of Taiji Palace, majestically carrying two big axes. All the palace maids and eunuchs who passed by trembled in fear when they saw Cheng Yaojin's big bell-like eyes. They hurriedly took a detour. At this moment, a man in a purple robe hurried in from the back door of Taiji Palace. Cheng Yaojin raised his axes and was about to give the order to arrest him when Li Shimin came out. Not only was he not angry, but he looked at Cheng Yaojin with a smile and said, "Old Black, you've worked hard. Come in with me." Cheng Yaojin was dumbfounded. He was ordered to guard the imperial study. Before the emperor returned, no one was allowed to enter. When he left, the emperor's face was full of anger, but why was he in such a good mood now? Cheng Yaojin was dumbfounded. He watched in a daze as Li Shimin entered the imperial study. Then he threw away his axes with a clang and walked into the imperial study. He shouted as he walked, "Your Majesty, wait for me." Chapter 99. After a while. After receiving the secret report from the Jinwu guards, Wei Zheng and the others hurried into the imperial study. As soon as they entered, they saw Li Shimin writing on the desk with a solemn expression. Zhang Sun Wuji and Cheng Yaojin were staring blankly at Li Shimin's back. As soon as they entered, Zhang Sun Wuji shushed them and said, "Don't make a sound." As he spoke, Zhang Sun Wuji smiled and gestured for them to continue. What was going on? Wasn't the emperor furious when he left the palace this morning? Now why did he have the leisure to write something? Could it be that the emperor wanted to kill Tubo's envoy? What Tubo's envoy did in Chang'an City last night and what happened in Chang'an City today really angered the emperor. Wei Zheng glanced at Zhang Sun Wuji with a grave expression. Then he walked forward and was about to interrupt Li Shimin. However, at that moment he saw the writing on Li Shimin's desk. Instantly he was shocked. One must enjoy life to the fullest. Don't let the golden goblet face the moon empty. I am born to be useful. Money will come back after it has been spent. cooking sheep and slaughtering cows for pleasure, drinking 300 cups at once, drinking wine don't stop. Let me sing a song with you. Please listen to me. This was, His Majesty wrote this? What a good poem. Your Majesty. If the Confucian officials in the imperial court knew about this poem, they would definitely be convinced by Your Majesty. After Li Shimin finished writing the poem, Du Ruhui and the others praised him repeatedly. Even the great writers of that time couldn't have written such a poem so freely. How could an ordinary person compose such an artistic conception? I feel that if Your Majesty's poem is listed as the subject of the imperial examinations in the future, the scholars of the future would be proud of it. Li Shimin took a deep breath and waved his hand. What do you think of this poem? Wonderful. Wonderful beyond words, Your Majesty. This poem only exists in the heavens. Li Shimin shook his head. This was not created by me. Everyone was shocked. Not created by His Majesty? Could it be, Your Majesty, could it be that this poem was created by Zhang Feng? That's right. Li Shimin looked at the poem on the desk with a complicated expression on his face. He felt that the poem was incomplete, but because of this he was even more eager to keep Zhang Feng by his side. Li Shimin was also someone who loved poetry and songs. This kind of beauty was really unable to be expressed with words. He made up his mind. In the future he would definitely get Zhang Feng to write 180 poems for him. When the time came, all the countries would come to pay homage to him. Not only would he be able to promote the culture of the great Tang, he would also be able to spread his name even further. But he also knew that this was a story for the future. He waved his hand and said, "This time I called you all here because of Tubo. Today I met Zhang Feng in Chang'an." What? Could it be that he knows Your Majesty's identity? Wei Zheng was shocked. Qing Yaojin was dozing off. He didn't understand any poems, but when he heard this he immediately became alert. Your Majesty, do you want me to bring Zhang Feng to the palace to meet His Majesty? Li Shimin rolled his eyes at Qing Yaojin. It's not what you think. While speaking, Li Shimin told him about his encounter with Zhang Feng. As he spoke he couldn't help but laugh. Then Li Shimin's voice became serious. This time, Wei Zheng, summon them to meet tomorrow to discuss Tubo's matter in Taiji Palace. As for the price, 10 million taels is my bottom line. Your Majesty, you mean to increase it by 10 million? No. Reduce it by 10 million? What? Reduce it? How can this be? These bastards, if it weren't for the wind and rain in Chang'an City last night, I would have skinned them alive. How can they? Shut up, old hay. Let His Majesty finish. Zhang Sun Wuji scolded Qing Yaojin lightly. Qing Yaojin sat on the chair angrily and didn't say anything, but his fists were clenched so tightly that they made cracking sounds. It seemed that as long as the emperor gave the order, he would rush to kill the enemy. Wei Zheng and the others weren't in a good mood either. No matter who it was, it would not feel good to be tricked behind their backs. Li Shimin also understood everyone's feelings and said faintly, "This matter is settled. You have to remember one thing, the retreat now is only for the sake of a more advantageous step forward in the future." Buzz? Hearing this, everyone couldn't help but hear a roar in their minds. The retreat now was only for the sake of a more powerful step forward in the future? Everyone was stunned. Damn it, was this the philosophy of Confucianism? The retreat now is only for the sake of a more powerful step forward in the future? Wei Zheng was shocked. Fang Xianling and Du Ruhui were also shocked. Everyone looked at Li Shimin in disbelief. With their attainments in Confucianism, they could instantly understand the meaning of this sentence. They were just shocked that although His Majesty's words seemed easy to understand, what kind of Confucianism philosophy was contained in it. Even if it was a great Confucian scholar from ancient times to the present, it was impossible for him to say such words. Sure enough, His Majesty really hit it well. How could he understand such words from this poem? How much wisdom was His Majesty hiding? However, at this moment, Li Shimin took a deep breath and said, "This is what the shopkeeper said." Chapter 100. After that, Li Shimin told Zhang Sun Wuji everything that happened today without hiding anything. At this time in the imperial study, Fang and Du, who were known as Li Shimin's right-hand men, were completely stunned. After a long while, they said in a trembling voice, "Your Majesty, this is a good plan." Wei Zheng paced in the imperial study for a while and said in a dignified voice, "Your Majesty, although this is a good plan, Tubo will definitely guard the craftsmen strictly when they arrive. This is a good plan, but we have to come up with some countermeasures. Otherwise, if our people are not determined enough and are instigated to rebel, Then, Li Shimin thought for a while and nodded. Zhang Sun Wuji, tell me your opinion. Zhang Sun Wuji stood up. Your Majesty, Your Excellency Wei, I didn't have any countermeasures before, but after Your Excellency Wei said this plan, I suddenly had a flash of inspiration. What do you think? If we select some of our trusted people from all over the country and let them go, Your Majesty, when we let them go, we can strengthen their sense of belonging to the Tang Dynasty. In this way we can let them settle down in Tubo and let them spread their branches in Tubo and settle down in Tubo. Zhang Sun Wuji's eyes flashed a fierce light. This way we can lower their guard. Moreover, we can make them become our nails in Tibet. They don't have to do anything and just live their lives. However, if we were to go to war with Tibet at that time, these 100,000 people will play an immeasurable role. This old subject believes that this should be Brother Zhang Feng's final thought on this matter. This. Li Shimin gasped in horror. Even Wei Jing, Fang Xianling, Du Ruhui and Qing Yaojin stood up in horror at this time. This plan was too vicious. However, this was an absolute measure just in case. If the craftsmen were replaced by soldiers, then, in the future if nothing happened they could still assimilate Tubo, develop their forces unknowingly, and become the backbone of the Tang Dynasty. This was a plan that would make a lot of money with little capital. Good plan. Li Shimin slapped the desk excitedly. My dear ministers, do you think this plan is feasible? Your Majesty, I think it's feasible. The Tubo Tuhan Turks are all ambitious wolves. If we send people to Tubo, Tubo will think of a way to keep them here. Why don't we go with the flow and let them settle down in Tubo and become our nails? There will definitely be a war between us and Tibet. However, at that time, if our 100,000 people explode in their territory, the effect of that will be much better than a 500,000 army charging at them head-on. Your Majesty, I, Old Qing, am willing to go to Tubo personally. Li Shimin waved his sleeves and said sternly, all of you listen to the decree. If we start now, how long will it take for the 100,000 soldiers to learn? Your Majesty, 1 month is enough. 1 month. At this time the matter with Tubo had not been settled yet. It would take 5 days to travel from here to Tubo. When they returned, they would definitely have a result within 10 days. If that was the case, 1 month would be enough. Li Shimin said solemnly, pass down the decree. Wei Jing, Fang Xianling, Du Ruhui, Zhang Sun Wuji and Qing Yaojin, listen to the decree. I order all of you to gather all of you from Longyu Dao and other places and start the training immediately. Zhang Sun Wuji. Order Li Jing and the other generals to secretly select 200,000 people from the various armies. Spread them out and enter Longyu Dao in batches to learn this technique. We must finish this before Tubo's envoy enters Chang, and again. Yes, Your Majesty. Your Majesty. After the decree was passed down, Wei Jing hesitated and asked, what about Honglu Temple? That side. Li Shimin frowned slightly. Let them be first. Since they are not loyal, I do not need to give them any face. Since they can create rumors, I do not believe that my people are all brainless people. After thinking about it, a smile flashed across Li Shimin's face. He looked at Qing Yaojin and said, Old Black, I have a mission for you. Qing Yaojin heard this and knelt down on one knee. Your Majesty, just tell me who to kill. I, Old Qing. I am not asking you to kill. You fool, why do you always want to kill? Your wife's birthday is coming up, right? I order you and your wife to gather all the wives of the officials in Chang and city and spread the news. Brilliant. This is what I call brilliant. Using the women folks' mouths, using the gossip of the common folk, to resolve this matter without anyone noticing. Brilliant. The emperor is indeed the emperor. Everyone could not help but secretly give Li Shimin a thumbs up. Qing Yaojin scratched his head. Was he asking his wife to make a scene? However, when he thought of his wife's mouth, Qing Yaojin rubbed his hands. How could Li Shimin not know what was on his mind? He waved his hand and said, I will give your wife a secret decree. You just need to follow the decree. Ask Zhang Sun about this matter. Okay. Chapter 101. Another 3 days passed. The rumors in Chang and city gradually subsided. Meanwhile, in Honglu Temple, Solons and the others could no longer sit still. No matter how they inquired and even used up all of their wealth, they did not get a single piece of information they wanted. They even suddenly felt that everyone in the Chamberlain of Dependencies was looking at them in a different light. They were no longer as respectful as before. Instead, there was a hint of coldness. Just as they were feeling uneasy, they received a summons from the emperor. They saw that the old eunuch leading the group was wearing Solons's favorite belt. His expression changed involuntarily. However, at a glance, they could see that the group of eunuchs were wearing their belongings. This time they could not remain calm. Fortunately, someone quietly told him that the leader was the personal eunuch of the Tang emperors. Suddenly Solons hurriedly bowed. Tubo's envoy Solons greets eunuch Xiao Gizi. Xiao Gizi looked at Solons with a smile that did not reach his eyes. "You're too polite, Lord Envoy. I'm just here to pass on a message." At this point Xiao Gizi's voice turned cold. He said, "Today the emperor is feeling unwell because of this matter, so he specially ordered me to come and summon you to the palace." Enter the palace? Did that mean that the matter had been settled? Solons was overjoyed when he heard that. Every 2 hours they stayed in Tubo, who knew how many people would die in Tubo. Now that they had been summoned by the emperor, did that mean that the matter had been settled? Solons hurriedly bowed in joy. "Thank you for your concern, your majesty." "Thank you, eunuch." As he spoke, Solons searched his guts and took out an ingot of gold. He handed it to Xiao Gizi with both hands. "Thank you for your help these days, eunuch. I hope you can buy some wine for me. If I return to Tubo, I will definitely give you a big gift." Xiao Gizi glanced at the ingot and smiled playfully. "Thank you, Lord Envoy." Little Rongzi accepted. Quickly thanked the envoy for his reward. Hearing this, a 15-year-old eunuch behind Xiao Gizi happily took the gold ingot from Solons. Although Solons was a little angry, he still smiled. This old thing was complaining that the money was too little. "But, from head to toe you belong to me. Do you think I'm a fool?" However, he didn't dare to say these words. She could only sullenly lower her head and follow little Gizi to the palace. At this moment, within Taiji Palace, it could be said that all the eloquent people of the Tang Dynasty had arrived. Even the person who was the best negotiator in the imperial court was sitting proudly in the middle of the hall with a righteous expression. Wei Jing saw everyone's reaction. He cupped his fists. "My lords, you all know that this matter concerns the reputation of the Tang Dynasty and the value of this blueprint. Therefore, I hope that all of you will mind your words. Lord Wei, since you and Lord Zhangsun have entrusted this matter to us, you can rest assured. We don't think we're senile enough to negotiate with you." "That's right. This damn Tubo. You came to ask for help, so you should act like you're asking for help. And you even spread rumors in Chang and City. This is really outrageous. Preposterous. In my opinion, 50 million taels of gold is still too little this time. If old man makes an offer, it will definitely be 10 times this price. Let him be terrified. I'd like to see how he's going to bargain." There was even a general who angrily slammed the table and shouted, "What's the point of selling? Isn't it better to just call him over and kill him while he's down? Won't it be great if all of it is ours?" Wei Jing, Zhang Sun, and the others looked at each other. A hint of a smile flashed in their eyes. The effect was achieved. Now it was up to Tubo how to deal with it. In order to make this matter perfect, only Zhang Sun, Wei Jing, Fang Xianling, Du Ruhui, and Qing Yaoji knew about the next plan. But now these people did not say a word. Instead, they looked at the angry crowd with smiles. Du Ruhui even added oil to the fire, and sighed with bemoaning the state of the universe and pitying mankind. "You don't know about this. At that time, the emperor was so angry that he almost fainted. Do you think this matter can be forgotten? No. Everyone was united against a common enemy. At this time, some people even began to roll up their sleeves as if they were ready to go all out." Wei Jing coughed and scolded, "Everyone, you are all the pillars of the Tang Dynasty. You are here to negotiate, not to argue. Don't you want that Tubo barbarian to laugh at us? All of you, show me the manners of a nation of etiquette. Let's show them our might." Hearing this, everyone tidied up their clothes. The emperor sat still. However, everyone's chests were still heaving violently. At this moment, a young eunuch's voice rang out outside Taiji Palace. "Tubo's envoy is here." Hearing this, a hint of anger flashed in everyone's eyes. Then, without looking at the door, the emperor sat still in his seat. Even Qing Yaojin and the other generals looked ahead at this time as if they were overlooking the battlefield. At this time, Solons and the others stepped into Taiji Palace. Chapter 102. As soon as they stepped into Taiji Palace, Sua Lang and the others could clearly feel a different atmosphere permeating the air. Wei Zheng and Zhang Sun Wuji habitually stood up to welcome the newcomer. However, their hands, which had just cupped together, froze in mid-air. The words in their throats were stuck in their throats. This time, Tubo's envoy was even more shabby than when they saw him in the court. The gold and silver used for decorations were gone. Are they going to be poor? A trace of resentment flashed across Wei Zheng's face. Tubo's envoy, Solons, pays his respects to you, your excellency. Solons bowed respectfully. As soon as he entered, he knew that today would be a difficult day. But he didn't expect that Wei Zheng, who was praised as the most difficult person to deal with in the Tang dynasty, would be confused by their appearance. This is a good sign. Wei Zheng coughed. Today, His Majesty is physically and mentally exhausted because of many things and the recent rumors in Chang'an City. Originally, His Majesty wanted to come in person, but he is not well, so this time old man is presiding over it. Solons hurriedly apologized. His Majesty the Tang Emperors is a role model for our generation for the sake of the people in the world. Here, on behalf of Tubo's brothers, I wish His Majesty the Tang Emperors good health. As he spoke, Solons and the others bowed. Then his voice changed and he said with a little bitterness, "This morning I suddenly heard that because of the drought in Tubo, tens of thousands of people were taken away by hunger. A few days ago, His Majesty the Tang Emperors, out of benevolence, specially gave me the treatment method of Tubo. I wonder if Your Excellency Wei," he emphasized the word, "give." This made all the ministers frown slightly. Although there was only a difference of one word, the meaning was really different. "Excuse me, Your Excellency. When did His Majesty say anything about bestowing? We were all in the main hall that day. Could it be that you think we are old and blind? Or do you think that everyone in the Tang dynasty, from His Majesty to the officials, is a fool?" All the ministers were dissatisfied. Originally, everyone was good at this. In addition, Tubo's people had the intention of flattering His Majesty. How could this be? If that was the case, wouldn't everyone in the world dare to disrespect the Tang dynasty? Even Zhang Sun Wuji stopped smiling and said in a serious tone, "Sir Envoy, we are all clear about this matter. Let's not beat around the bush. The 50 million taels of gold that we agreed to was already His Majesty's benevolence. If it were someone else, not to mention 50 million, even if it's 100 million taels, the Tang dynasty would still disdain it." Solons's expression changed slightly. However, his expression did not change. He sighed and said, "Lord Zhangsun, please calm down. I know that because of the local customs, you all think that we are arrogant, but that is not the case. Our respect for the Tang dynasty is as clear as the sun and the moon. But you all also know that Tubo is in a difficult situation now. We really can't afford 50 million taels of gold. If it were in the past, not to mention 50 million taels of gold, even if it was 10 times the price, Tubo would still be able to afford it. In recent years, Tubo's borders have not been peaceful. We have been fighting with India and other countries for years. Coupled with the severe drought this year, we really don't have that much money." Zhang Sun Wuji smiled. He took a sip of wine and grabbed Wei Zheng, who was about to speak, and said, "I know Tubo's difficulties. But you also know the Tang dynasty's difficulties. My great Tang has been at war for many years, and now that the common people are finally able to rest and recuperate, the Longyu path is suddenly struck by a calamity. Look at you, the Longyu path. All of our food has been used for disaster relief." Solons and the others' eyebrows suddenly twitched. What is this old thing doing? Why is he talking about the Longyu Dao at this time? Does he want to? That's right. I think Lord Solons also understands what I mean. At this time, Zhang Sun Wuji stood up with a dejected expression. Originally, His Majesty wanted food because everyone knows that our Tang dynasty is short of food. At this time, food is the only way to resolve the drought. However, His Majesty is merciful and can't bear to see his brothers suffer. So, in the opposition of the civil and military officials, His Majesty decided that we must ask for money, not food. Brilliant. It was so King Hai. All the officials of the Tang dynasty present couldn't help but give him a thumbs up under their embroidered robes. Looking at Zhang Sun Wuji, whose face was full of tears, everyone sincerely admired him. They were full of admiration. At this time, all the envoys of Tubo were frowning. Damn it! What should they do? Before they could speak, all the officials in the Taiji Palace followed suit and began to sob. I didn't expect that His Majesty's mercy would be spread in Chang'an City by some people, saying that His Majesty won't help Tubo. Some people also said that Tubo's brothers have gathered hundreds of thousands of people and are going to attack Chang'an at any time. Tell me, what is the intention of the person who spread the rumor? Lord Solons, tell me, is this true? Tubo's people are in full swing now and we are actively trying to find a way, but someone wants to take the opportunity to sow discord between us. If His Majesty listens to the slanderous words at this time and orders millions of Tang soldiers to attack Tubo in anger, have you thought about the consequences? Solons was shocked. His whole body was trembling. In an instant he only felt that the world was spinning. Damn it! Can you not trick me like this? Chapter 103. However, the problem now was it really a good idea to lead the conversation like this? The Tubo envoy's expression changed involuntarily. Solon stood there, not knowing whether to sit or stand. He said in a low, muffled voice, "My lords, these are all rumors. Although I don't know who is spreading such rumors, this matter really has nothing to do with me, Tubo. Think about it, I, Tubo, am now in a difficult situation. How could I do such a thing? Our two countries have always been the best neighbors. How could we dare to do such a thing under the nose of the tiger known as the Tang Dynasty? This is a misunderstanding. It's a rumor. I beg you, my lords, to give me Tubo justice. Those who hurt our relationship must be severely punished." Solons understood. This matter was messed up this time. It's all Sauron's fault. If he hadn't been so stubborn and insisted on spreading rumors, things would be great now. He was caught red-handed. However, now he only hoped that the Tang Dynasty wouldn't be so ruthless and ask for less. Zhang Sun Wuji sigh. "Brother, I know that these are all rumors, so I didn't take it to heart. You don't have to worry about this matter." Wei Jing also stood up to smooth things over. "Lord Zhangsun, we are here to negotiate the price. It won't be too late to discuss anything after this matter is settled and His Majesty holds a banquet." "Oh, yes. Zhang Sun Wuji pretended to be enlightened and patted his head. Then he spread his hands and said awkwardly, "Well, since Lord Solon said that this is a bit too much, then let's not talk about money. Now, I know that it's very uncomfortable. But the Tang Dynasty is also the same. Since there are difficulties, then let's not talk about money. Talking about money hurts feelings. How about this? How about we exchange food for it?" "What the hell? Food? *CK. Can you be any more shameless? If I had food, would I have come to the Tang Dynasty for help?" Tubo's diplomatic mission exploded. Sauron immediately stood up and said in a muffled voice, "You're looting a burning house. If I, Tubo, want food, I have it. Why should we ask for it? You keep saying that you want to help me, Tubo. What are you doing now? In my opinion, if the Tang Dynasty is not sincere, I'll go back directly. I'll tell the world what kind of people the Tang Dynasty is." "Sauron, shut up." Solon's expression suddenly changed. However, this was just for show. These words were exactly what he wanted to say. However, at this moment he realized that something was wrong. When Sauron spoke, he actually saw a hint of a trap on the faces of these Tang Dynasty officials. No, this was a trap. "My lords, Sauron is a straightforward person, so please bear with him. However, although his words are crude, they are still reasonable. I hope that my lords can understand the difficulties of Tubo. If you can stop the drought in Tubo, my king said that all the food exports of Tubo next year will be at the lowest price to the Tang Dynasty." "What? How dare you threaten us? Do you believe that old man won't let you walk out of Chang'an City? How dare you? How preposterous. Are you asking for help? This is simply the logic of a bandit. If you ask me, this thing shouldn't be given. It's better to burn it than to give it to them. His Majesty's painstaking efforts are actually for a group of ingrates like this." When all the officials heard this, they instantly exploded. At this time, no one cared about the etiquette of the Tang Dynasty. Everyone cursed and quarreled with the Tubo envoys. Solons, Zhang Sun Wuji, Wei Jing, Fang Xianling, and Du Ruhui narrowed their eyes as if waiting for something. Qing Yaojin was even more direct. He picked up a stool and was about to beat Sauron to death. At this moment, Wei Jingkai scolded coldly. "Enough. What a scandal. Do you think this is a vegetable market or something? Old Hay, watch your actions." Then Wei Jing stood up, looked at Solons and said lightly, "What do you think we should do about this? You've seen the situation now. You don't want to give the money and you don't want to give the food either. His Majesty originally wanted to donate it to you, but now it seems that the donation won't work. Even if we agree, all the people of the Tang Dynasty won't agree. So, you'd better come up with a way. We're all very busy." Wei Jing directly made the decision. This was because he had obtained the result he wanted. And this matter shouldn't be dragged on for too long. At this time, Solons was also in a dilemma. He wished he could slap himself twice. Now he finally understood why the people of the Tang Dynasty were so angry at the beginning. It turned out that His Majesty the Tang Emperors intended to give this thing away for free. Damn Sauron. If it weren't for you, my Tubo, Solons's vision went dark. He felt a sweetness in his heart and almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He finally understood why he felt something was wrong from the beginning. He was digging a hole for Tubo. Money. Food. Now he had to choose one of the two. If the Tufan kings knew about this, even if he didn't die he would be skinned alive. At the thought of this, Solons's head was about to explode. After a while, he said in a muffled voice, "In that case you set a price." Chapter 104. After 6 hours of negotiation, Zhang Wuji finally came to a decision. In the end, Tubo gave in. In the end, they signed the contract for 45 million taels of gold and left Chang and city with their tails between their legs. They were not even in the mood to wait for Li Shimin's banquet of the highest standard. How could they be in the mood to eat? They had wanted to lower the price to the lowest so that they could reap some benefits. But now they had gone for wool and come home shorn. Instead, they had gone through so much trouble and only managed to negotiate for 500,000 taels of gold. Did Tubo lack 500,000 taels of gold? Of course not. Who would care about 500,000 taels of gold? Solons had sent a messenger pigeon to the Tufan kings after they had reached an agreement that day. He had promised that he would be able to get the blueprint effortlessly. But now, Solons wished that he could kill that idiot Sauron right now. But it was all too late. 5 days later, carriages whose heads and tails could not be seen appeared in Chang and city in an endless stream. Although these carriages looked no different from ordinary carriages, they were all pulled by 3 horses at the same time. Even the roads that these carriages passed by left deep tracks in their wake. All the people were puzzled. But there were also some well-informed people who knew that these carriages must contain the money that Tubo had used to buy the sacred item to cure the drought. The carriages went from the illustrious Virtue Gate to the Vermilion Bird Avenue, to the Vermilion Bird Gate, and finally to the Imperial Palace. Along the way there was no tail of these carriages. Qing Yaojin and the others were beaming. They pointed at the carriages below the city gate tower and said, "See that? If I didn't scare them with my broad axe that day, they wouldn't have handed over the gold so obediently." Wei Zheng and the others pursed their lips when they heard that. Meanwhile, in the imperial study, Wei Zheng and the others brought the document signed by Tubo's envoy and presented it to Li Shimin with both hands. "Your Majesty, this is a letter written by the Tufan kings to Your Majesty from Tubo's envoy, and this is a document from the Tubo envoy as well as 35 million taels of gold. Not a single coin is missing." "Oh. Present it." Li Shimin looked at the booklet in Wei Zheng's hand. With a wave of his hand, he opened the booklet and read it carefully. He didn't even look at the gold. A moment later, Li Shimin's eyes were burning. "Good. Very good. My beloved ministers, you have handled this matter beautifully. On the day of the imperial edict, anyone who participates will be rewarded with 1,000 taels of gold." Now that he had money, Li Shimin did not show a stern expression. With a wave of his hand, he rewarded each of them with 1,000 taels. The gold was a small matter. The key was what the Tufan kings had promised. In the letter, the Tufan kings first thanked Li Shimin and then promised that as soon as the grain was harvested this year, he would sell it to the Tang Dynasty at a low price. But did he, Li Shimin, take a fancy to this? No. What he saw was that Zhang Feng's plan had really succeeded. As long as the grain was transported to Tubo, then the plan would really begin. "Beloved Minister Wei, is there any news from our spy?" Li Shimin pondered for a while and asked. "Yes." As he spoke, Wei Zheng took out a bamboo tube as thick as a thumb from his embroidered robe and passed it to Li Shimin. "This is everything that happened in Tubo after the Tubo envoy returned." In order to reassure the people, the Tufan kings really went to the border to welcome the envoy group back. Hearing this, Li Shimin slowly opened the secret report. After reading about everything that happened in Tubo on that day, Li Shimin's heart became more and more shocked. Zhang Feng's foresight was truly godly. "Regarding this matter, do you all think that what Brother Zhang Feng said will come true?" Li Shimin asked solemnly. Wei Zheng and the others also stopped smiling and did not dare to overstep their boundaries. "Your Majesty, it seems that everything is exactly as Zhang Feng said. However, it depends on whether someone in Tubo can create this thing. If he can really create this thing, then—" "No." Zhang Sun Wuji interrupted Wei Zheng. "I know about this. Previously, I personally supervised the craftsmen in Chang and city to make this thing. Although the outside is simple, the key is the seal and the wooden gears inside. Although I don't know what the gears are used for, do you know how many gears there are?" "How many?" Wei Zheng did not know about this. At this moment he could not help but feel puzzled. Even Li Shimin became interested. Zhang Sun Wuji stretched out his hand and said, 55. There are gears made of copper, iron, wood and some other things. 55 in total. If you don't have someone who is familiar with this manufacturing method, you won't be able to connect these gears at all. Even if you connect them, you won't be able to shake the handles or pump water out. This time, Li Shimin and the others were finally relieved. Although this matter seemed trivial, it was enough to show Zhang Feng's wisdom. If it wasn't for Zhang Feng, then how could he, Li Shimin, have obtained 45 million taels of gold for no reason? And he did not even dare to think about the next trap. He smacked his lips. Li Shimin murmured, Zhang Feng is really the god of wealth of the Tang Dynasty. Chapter 105. At the banquet, Li Shimin had specially prepared a delicacy called the cocoon. After Zhang Feng's improvements, this dish had become the signature dish of the imperial palace. Even the locust eggs around Chang and city seemed to have been plowed, and the production had gradually decreased. Some businessmen had found a business opportunity and bought them from Longyu Road, then sold them to Chang'an. Even so, it was still not enough to satisfy the people of Chang'an city. Therefore, the price of this thing had skyrocketed from 1 copper coin per caddy to 1 kilogram to 1 kilogram of it now. Now that the crowd had seen so many different kinds of things, how could the officials wait any longer? They immediately reached out to grab it. Li Shimin was also quite generous. He took out 2 jars of fine wine that Zhang Feng gave him. Everyone, I really can't bear to drink these 2 jars of fine wine. However, to celebrate today I would like to share them with you. The 2 jars of wine were not big. At most, the crowd could only drink 2 bowls each. However, when they saw Li Shimin's mysterious and solemn expression, as well as his pained expression, they understood that this thing was definitely something good. The crowd stood up and shouted in unison. Thank you, Your Majesty. Li Shimin waved his hand, and a palace maid opened the seal with a bang. In an instant, a rich wine aroma aroused everyone's appetite. First it was the locust eggs. Now it was this fine wine. Although they had not tasted it yet, the rich and fragrant aroma of the wine had already made everyone's eyes widen. If a palace maid accidentally spilled a drop of it, she would be so distressed that she would bleed. Although Wei Zheng and the others had this kind of wine at home, they could only drink it once. What was this now? This was a gift from the emperor. No, they had to find brother Zhang Feng alone. At most they would buy some. Anyway, the emperor had rewarded them with 1,000 taels of gold. What else could they do besides buy wine? They had just drunk and the wine was gone. However, Li Shimin was generous for once today. He directly took out 30 jars of tribute wine from the wine cellar and invited everyone to a banquet. The banquet soon ended. Wei Zheng and the others were stopped by Li Shimin. All of you have seen this matter. If it weren't for Zhang Feng, we would still be worried about the drought in Longyu and the surrounding situation. But now I have Zhang Feng. It seems that everything in his eyes has become so simple that it can't be any simpler. While talking and laughing, he has already thoroughly analyzed the situation of the Tang Dynasty. I am ashamed of today's banquet. He is clearly a meritorious subject, but I don't know what reason I have to summon him here to drink with me. Speaking of which, Li Shimin's voice was choked with emotion. Tell me, how should we thank him? Everyone was shocked. Could it be that the emperor wanted to lay his cards on the table? Emperor? Wei Jing knelt on one knee excitedly. We have to think about this matter at length. It's not the right time yet. At least, it won't be too late to talk about it after this matter is perfectly solved and the Tujue, Tuyuhun, and other countries are all restrained. That's right, Your Majesty. Right now the situation is still unknown. Think about it, if we were to lay our cards on the table right now, let's not talk about whether Brother Zhang Feng would agree to His Majesty's request at this time. Besides, if that was the case, would Zhang Feng still talk to you like this? Everyone was anxious. They all tried to persuade Li Shimin. This matter was true. If the emperor laid his cards on the table at this time, what would they do? They still wanted to rope in Zhang Feng. Li Shimin was also confused. So you mean, it's not the right time yet? It's not the right time. It's really not the right time now. Everyone hurriedly waved their hands. Li Shimin also fell silent. He also knew that everything was a little uncertain. But now, after hearing what these people said, he really felt a little guilty. Most importantly, Wei Zheng was so anxious that his face and neck were red. No. He had to sound out Zhang Feng on this matter. If he was willing, then what should he be afraid of? But if it really didn't work, he could send the crown prince and the others to learn from Zhang Feng first. That should be fine, right? Thinking of this, Li Shimin looked at the sky and then said, Wei Jing, come with me to the tavern tomorrow and give half of what you got this time to the shopkeeper. Wait. Your Majesty, you can't do that. Wei Jing was shocked. He hurriedly said, half of it is more than 20,000 taels of gold. Your Majesty should know that this amount is enough to start a war between two countries. And with Zhang Feng's character, as long as you take it out, he will definitely think it through and you will be the emperor. Have you really thought it through, Your Majesty? Li Shimin was put in a difficult position. Then what do you think we should do with this money? Everyone fell silent. At this moment, Du Ruhui said leisurely, Your Majesty, have you ever thought that if you reward Zhang Feng according to 1% of the amount, although I haven't seen him, I can feel his talent and he will definitely be in the imperial court in the future? Why don't you wait until Zhang Feng comes to the imperial court and then reward him? At that time, the officials will be convinced and you won't be in a difficult position. What do you think? Well, Li Shimin was a little hesitant. Then let's talk about it tomorrow. Chapter 106. For a few days, Zhang Feng was fiddling with his bacon. Although this thing seemed easy to handle, it was early summer. If it was not handled properly, it would go bad. Therefore these days he kept changing the water and blanching all the water in the meat with salt. Then he spent some money to get some sandalwood and cypress branches from the woodcutter. He smoked it carefully. Although smoking meat seemed simple, it was not the right time. Moreover, he had nothing to do these days, which made Zhang Feng miss his hometown very much. Therefore he was thinking about making this thing. On the one hand, it was to satisfy his appetite. Smoking was a worry-free life. He also had some money. Although they were all notes used by businessmen and officials, Zhang Feng had exchanged these things for gold bars and kept them in a secret place. Although the ticket number was good, there was no guarantee that it would drop in value the next day. It would be better to exchange it for gold bars. Looking at the skewers of smoked meat, Zhang Feng's mind started to run wild again. When the time came, the system might give him something. If it gave him a small pub at the beginning, what if he had to make a living in this pub in the future? Then he had to plan for the future. For example, the mutton skewers were secret weapons. Only Lao Li and the others had eaten them. And the wine. When the time came, these would be the capital to dominate the Tang Dynasty. As he thought about it, Zhang Feng could not help but think about whether there were any famous ladies in Chang'an City. In this era, only families of equal social status were considered. When the time came, all these would be relied on. After all, everyone wanted to marry a wife, right? And who did not want to have a group of wives? Ahem. Just as Zhang Feng was leaning on the counter, laughing foolishly and even drooling, a cough pulled him back from his beautiful fantasy. Yo, Lao Li? Lao Wei? We haven't seen each other for a while. Come. Take a seat. The people who came were Li Shimin and Wei Zheng in disguise. Shopkeeper. You're rich. Li Shimin was unable to hide the excitement in his heart. He pulled Zhang Feng's hand and took out a bill from his bosom. On it was written 4,500 taels of gold. He looked at the numbers on the bill. Even though Zhang Feng had already guessed in his heart, he was still confused at this moment. 45 million gold? If it wasn't for the official opening receipt, he wouldn't have dared to believe it. Was it really that valuable? Initially, he thought that even if His Majesty were to personally sell this blueprint, he would not be able to sell it for so much money. No, more than that. If His Majesty was selling it, it wouldn't be so little. Zhang Feng scratched the back of his head and asked, Who did you sell this to? Sold to the authorities. Li Shimin was very good at making up lies. You don't know. At that time, Lord Zhang, son of the Ministry of Personnel, personally came to find me. Do you know what that means? This means that we're rich. Brother, I sent him away. This time I made a connection with Lord Zhang's son. Do you know? Whose idea was that? That's His Majesty. Li Shimin's spittle flew everywhere. He pretended to be excited and said, At that time Lord Zhang's son came to my residence. Do you know that that guy really brought honor to our family? Moreover, Lord Zhang's son said that if there's anything good in the future, he won't forget about us. Last night, after I entertained Lord Zhang's son, I immediately opened the ancestral hall early this morning to worship our ancestors. Then I hurried over to you. Zhang Feng was dumbfounded. This was the first time he had seen Lao Li speak so eloquently. Zhang Feng couldn't help but smack his lips and pat Li Shimin's shoulder. Lao Li, you've inherited my teachings. How about this? I don't want this money today. Tomorrow, dress up properly and come to worship me as your master. Worship? Worship me as your master? Li Shimin and Wei Zheng were dumbfounded. How did this become worshipping him as his master? Wei Zheng was even more furious. The dignified emperor of the Tang Dynasty was actually asking him to worship you as his master? What kind of scandal was this? What kind of scandal was this? Oh. Wei Zheng immediately interrupted Zhang Feng. But at this time he also woke up with a start. He hurriedly changed his words and said, Brother Zhang Feng, look at how old we are. How about this? Why don't we let Lao Li and my good-for-nothing son worship you as his master? If Lao Li worships you as his master, wouldn't that make the world a laughing stock? That's true. Zhang Feng scratched the back of his head. He smiled and didn't take it seriously. This is just a joke. Don't take it seriously. But you've learned most of my skills. I'm just afraid that we won't be able to see each other for a long time. How can that be? What are you talking about? Are you saying that you can't beat me, Lao Li? Li Shimin patted his chest loudly. Zhang Feng was just joking. If he really asked Lao Li to worship him as his master, he would really have a headache. With this price, he was definitely not a decent person. He didn't dare to teach him to inquire about the affairs of the imperial court all day long. If he didn't do it well, he might lose his head. Zhang Feng couldn't help but look at the bill in his hand and said with emotion, "It's enough to have a confidant in life. But Lao Li, do you think I'm handsome?" Chapter 107. Although Li Shimin and Wei Jing didn't know how to explain the word handsome. But now, looking at Zhang Feng's appearance, they instantly understood. Wei Jing clasped his fists and said, "Brother Zhang Feng, I'm about 20 years old. I'm pretty, but I'm a little thin. I wonder why you're asking this?" "Great. Old Wei has good taste. Wait, I'll give you something good to eat today." While talking, Zhang Feng hurried into the kitchen. Li Shimin and Wei Jing were dumbfounded. What was this guy thinking? Looking at his despicable look, could it be, is he thinking of his wife? Li Shimin and Wei Jing exclaimed in unison. This matter, although very simple at this time, if they could arrange a marriage for him, then they could tie him down. When the time came, if their princess married him, then everything would be easy, everything's ready. Just when Li Shimin's imagination was running wild, Zhang Feng hurried out with a plate of fragrant boiled smoked meat. And the tempting aroma in the air made the two of them look at Zhang Feng instantly. "Ah, Brother Zhang Feng, what delicious food did you prepare this time?" Li Shimin stood up and looked at the plate and asked. "Hey, aren't you bored? I made some smoked meat. This is the taste in my memory. Come have a taste." While talking, Zhang Feng put a plate of neatly cut streaky pork on the table, then turned to the counter and took a jar of wine. The meat was just boiled in ordinary water. It was crystal clear like white marble. There was a trace of bright red meat mixed in it, which increased the appetite of Li Shimin and Li Chia. But looking at the meat, Li Shimin was a little confused. Next to the bowl of meat, there was a plate of white powder and a few bottles of seasoning. Zhang Feng sat down and stirred the seasoning evenly in another bowl. Then he sprinkled some of the white powder. Li Shimin was curious. He picked up a little white powder with his chopsticks and put it into his mouth. In an instant his eyes widened. "This is salt? This is? How can there be such fine salt? Brother Zhang Feng, tell me, is this salt?" Zhang Feng was a little confused. "Yes. What's wrong, Lao Li? Isn't it just a little bit of salt? Do you need to be like this?" "No." Li Shimin's face suddenly became serious. His hands trembling, he picked up the bowl of salt and carefully. After Wei Jing tried it, he was shocked beyond words. "We all know about this salt. This thing can only be used by the rich. This thing is bitter and has a strange smell. But even so, it is worth a caddy of money. Ordinary people can only buy a little vinegar cloth to use. Where did you get this? And why is this salt so pure? It doesn't have a trace of sourness." Li Shimin was really shocked. When he left last time, he knew that Zhang Feng wanted to make salt, but he did not take it to heart. All the salt in the Tang Dynasty was controlled by the government. Ordinary people could only buy some. During the refining process, the cloth was stained with salt, commonly known as vinegar cloth, to obtain the salt. But why was this salt different from all the other salt? It was even purer than the green salt they used to wash their teeth. How did he do it? This is very simple. Do you have to? Zhang Feng knew that the people in this world were in short supply of salt, and that the salt was really disgusting. So every time he bought salt, he would personally refine it. At that time, he did not see Lao Li and the others so shocked. Could it be that this thing was really so precious? Zhang Feng could not help but pat his head. "Lao Li, your chance to make a fortune is here again. But this time it depends on whether you have the guts or not. Please tell me." Li Shimin knew that the business Zhang Feng was talking about this time must be this salt. He could not help but ignore his status. He grabbed Zhang Feng's hand and humbly asked for advice. This salt was his biggest headache. That was why he was so concerned about it last time, but he did not take it to heart. But now that he had tasted it personally, he suddenly asked, "The things we ate before were all this salt?" "Yeah. How else do you think this thing can be so delicious?" "Then the mutton kebab last time was also this?" "Yes. Didn't you see it that day? Do you still need to ask?" Li Shimin slapped his face and forcefully suppressed the excitement in his heart. How could he not be excited? This thing was in high demand. Previously, the military reported that many people were swollen because of the lack of salt. Some even did not have the strength to wear their armor. It was all because of the extraction of salt and the fact that there were many toxins in it. Moreover, he could not guarantee that every soldier would be able to eat this thing. So when he saw the soldiers in the military like this, he could only be anxious. But now it was different. He had Zhang Feng. Brother Zhang Feng, can you tell me how did you refine this salt? Hey, Lao Li, do you finally understand the value of this salt? Since you're so impatient, I'll tell you. Li Shimin was sitting still. Brother Zhang Feng, as long as you can get this thing, Lao Li, will satisfy you whatever you want. Zhang Feng heard this. He slapped Li Shimin's shoulder. I have been waiting for you to say this, Lao Li. Let me ask you, do you know the most beautiful girl in Chang'an City? Chapter 108. I'm already waiting to hear it, but you didn't tell me this? Li Shimin almost couldn't catch his breath. I say, if you miss your wife, then so be it. What does that have to do with this? Sigh. Of course it does. Zhang Feng counted on his fingers and said, let me tell you, if a person doesn't miss his wife, then his life is meaningless. And you know that I'm quite free. You guys haven't come for a few days or even half a month. Isn't there someone to keep me company? This guy was lonely. Li Shimin nodded slightly. Then he looked at Zhang Feng carefully. When Zhang Feng saw this, he couldn't help but strike a pose that he was most satisfied with. Zai Lao Li, what do you think? Do you have someone? Say something? Yes. Li Shimin nodded and his heart calmed down a little. I have a candidate in mind. This woman's character and talent. She's proficient in zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting, and she's from a prestigious family. Are you interested? Who is it? As far as I remember, Chang'an City doesn't seem to have such a thing. And even if there is, they are either married or betrothed to someone else. Otherwise they are just a little older. Are you trying to trick me? Zhang Feng looked at Li Shimin suspiciously. At this moment, even Wei Jing looked at Li Shimin with surprise. Could it be that the emperor was thinking of? But at this moment, Li Shimin said softly, it's the princess. When Zhang Feng heard this, he spat a mouthful of wine on Li Shimin's face. Fine. Let's forget about this. We'll talk about it later. Damn it, princess. Do little commoners like us have a death wish? How dare you have designs on the princess? Then it would be strange if the emperor didn't kill your whole family. The more Zhang Feng thought about it, the more he felt that it was unreliable, so he simply did not mention it. Forget it, let's talk business. Even with your blockhead, you can't think of a suitable one. When that day comes, we'll find one ourselves. You've been eating this salt all this time. Do you think there's anything wrong with it? Seeing Zhang Feng get down to business, Li Shimin and Wei Jing hurriedly shook their heads. Apart from you, I can guarantee that there is no other person in the world who can make salt. Moreover, this is a controlled product. Most people wouldn't be willing to buy it even if they could afford it. Zhang Feng nodded. Aren't you related to Zhang Sun Wuji? Then you have to grasp this opportunity. Speak. Li Shimin and Wei Jing looked at each other, cupped their hands and said, this thing is simple. You guys eat first, I'll be back soon. While speaking, Zhang Feng went into the kitchen. After a while, he took out a small oil lamp and a strange stand. On the stand, there was a palm-sized pot filled with water. Next to these things, there was a piece of yellow crystal. They recognized this thing. It was the salt that they usually ate. Zhang Feng put the oil lamp under the small pot to boil the water. Then he smashed the salt with the back of the kitchen knife, picked up a walnut-sized piece of salt, and threw it into the pot. As the water boiled, Zhang Feng slowly stirred the pot with his chopsticks. As he stirred, Zhang Feng took out a piece of white silk gauze from the counter and covered a bowl with it. Then he poured the dissolved sour water into the bowl. Dark yellow impurities were left on the gauze. Then, under the puzzled eyes of Li Shimin and Wei Jing, Zhang Feng took out another oil lamp and put the two oil lamps under the bowl. He stirred with his chopsticks and let the water boil. After a while, the light yellow water was poured into the small pot wrapped in the white silk cloth by Zhang Feng again. This time, the water had turned light blue without any impurities. At this time the fire was even bigger. Zhang Feng stirred his chopsticks at a faster speed. After a quarter of an hour, the water became thicker. Zhang Feng took out an oil lamp. There was only one left and he was slowly roasting it. Come on. In a while it's time to witness a miracle. Let's drink. Don't just stand there. Zhang Feng stood up and looked at Li Shimin and Wei Jing, who were staring at the small pot in confusion. He patted their shoulders. Eat meat. Eat meat, it's good stuff. Li Shimin and Wei Zheng looked at each other. Then they picked up the wine bowl and gulped it down. They didn't even taste the meat. They waited for a while again. They saw that the pot had become snowy white. At this time, Zhang Feng clapped his hands and slowly stood up. It's done. This is the salt. Zhang Feng covered the small pot with gauze and turned it upside down on the table. Then he gently patted the white crystal with a kitchen knife. Then it turned into the same powder as the bowl. Salt. So simple? Do you want to try it? Zhang Feng moved aside, allowing Li Shimin and Wei Zheng to squat in front of the table like curious babies, carefully staring at the things on the table. Then he picked up a piece and threw it into his mouth without fear of the saltiness. He chewed slowly. At this moment all the doubts turned into shock. Li Shimin was stunned. His hands trembled as he picked up the salt on the table. His voice was choked with emotion. Brother Zhang Feng, this is the salt you refined? Chapter 109. Salt. This was something that concerned everyone's fate. The thing that Wei Zheng had always been brooding over had become so simple in Zhang Feng's hands. Back then he had personally witnessed the Qin King's army during the expedition. If he had this thing, why would he put himself in danger several times? Salt. Without it, one's body would be deficient. If he didn't eat it for a long time, his body would swell. How could such a Tang army guard the border? But now he and the emperor were casually thrown out in this small tavern by Zhang Feng? Was this still the thing that everyone in the world regarded as a treasure? Wei Zheng's eyes were moist. And so was Li Shimin. He suppressed the excitement in his heart and asked, Brother Zhang Feng, what's the difference between this thing and the official salt? Why is your salt even finer than the blue salt that only the officials can use? In the past 6 months, Zhang Feng had also sighed. This thing that was common in the future was something that many ordinary people couldn't afford. Let's put it this way. This salt, as you all know, is poisonous, but people can't lack it. However, taking it for a long time will also cause irreparable damage to the body. Also, what do you think of my dishes? The dishes are very good. Is it all because of this salt? Li Shimin hurriedly asked. In the past, Zhang Feng didn't care about the saying that a good chef needed a handful of salt. However, when he transmigrated to Tang Dynasty, he couldn't help but wish that he could erect a plaque and worship the person who had said this saying back then, and offer incense to him every day. The food in this era, no matter good or bad, was basically stewed in a pot. No matter what seasoning, no matter what kind of delicacies, as long as this salt was thrown in, it would definitely become salty, bitter, and astringent in minutes. And this was treated as a treasure by them. Even ordinary people could only afford a little bit of cloth used to boil table salt. This was called vinegar cloth in this era. It was melted into water and then used. The sour taste was 3 times stronger than the Qishan vinegar of the future era. Thus, Zhang Feng couldn't help but sigh. So this was how vinegar came to be. What do you think of this salt and the dishes from before? That goes without saying. Li Shimin smacked his lips, his face full of emotion. Ever since I've eaten your dishes, no matter how many delicacies my family makes, they're like wax to me. Is it all because of the salt? Sigh. Don't you think you're just wasting things? Zhang Feng could not help but wring his hands. Such a good thing, but you threw it into the pot and stewed it? I don't understand. Does your emperor eat this too? This thing, as they spoke, Zhang Feng picked up a pitch-black salty lump on the table and said, This thing tastes bitter, astringent, and has a strong sour taste. Long-term consumption will cause diarrhea and bloating. Have any of you experienced this before? Hearing this, the two hurriedly nodded. But this thing, Lao Li, since he's connected you with Lord Zhang's son, then your chance to make a fortune is here. After talking for a long time, Zhang Feng also used up a lot of his energy. Under the gaze of Li Shimin and Wei Zheng, he happily received 2 bags of fine salt and put them into his arms like treasures. In the end, Zhang Feng also brought up the final topic. I know that salt is now controlled by the government. Even if you've learned it, you don't have the permission of the housekeeper to mine and refine table salt without permission. It's a capital offense. However, if you sincerely offer it to Zhang's son. Li Shimin felt a headache coming on. What are you talking about? Am I really that murderous? Such a good thing, I can't wait for you to get more. However, he also knew that Zhang Feng must have something else to say, so he could only listen obediently. Zhang Feng continued, You've seen the method of this thing, so you should have learned it by now, right? Li Shimin and Wei Zheng nodded like a rattledrum. At this time, Zhang Feng said mysteriously, I've passed it to you, so it's time for you to express your gratitude. I was in a hurry this time, so I didn't bring much money. Other than the money I gave you, I only brought a few ingots of gold. Enough. Seeing that Li Shimin was hemming and hawing, Zhang Feng was so angry that he could not vent his anger. I have to make this clear first. This is my secret that won't be passed on. You also know the key to it, but it's different now. Since you've hooked up with Zhang Sun Wuji, then now I'll tell you and give you some pointers. Free of charge, you were muddle-headed. Not only did you not earn any money, but you also lost your lives. Not only did you lose your lives, but you also dragged me down with you. Zhang Feng was a little speechless. He wished he could slap himself. Why did I take out salt? This is my capital in the Tang Dynasty in the future. However, it was too late to regret now. He had to admit that he was struck by lightning for showing off. Well, you can offer this thing to Zhang Sun Wuji. I believe that he's a smart person and will definitely give it to His Majesty. At that time, your official career will be open because of this. But I advise you too. With your big mouths, don't be an official. Just get a position in the salt monitoring department. With this, I guarantee that you'll make a lot of money in the future. Chapter 110. This, isn't it just salt production? Why would it be like what you said? Li Shimin pretended to be confused. Zhang Feng wanted to bite him. He pointed again. What do you know? Do you know that salt is only used by rich merchants and government officials now? How can ordinary people afford it? But if this thing is sold to the common people, what will happen? Although Zhang Feng knew that this was not possible, at least for now, he had to popularize this way of making money. But in the past, ordinary people couldn't afford salt, let alone this fine salt now. I've observed that your salt can only be refined into about half a caddy at most. The cost of the salt. Zhang Feng was crying at Li Shimin's stupidity. Lao Li, let me ask you, is salt very scarce? No. Wei Jing continued, whether it's the thousands of miles of saline alkali land in Longyu Road or the south, there is as much as you want. But it's poisonous and very few people are willing to mine it. Then that's it. Zhang Feng spread his hands. If I tell you that I have a way to solve the problem of salt mining, what will happen? You know how to mine salt? Li Shimin and Wei Jing jumped up in excitement. Their words in unison scared Zhang Feng so much that he shivered and spilled all the salt on the plate of cured meat. Do you two have to make such a fuss? I'm working so hard and I'm still planning for you too. Zhang Feng rolled his eyes. He knocked on the table and said, actually, this thing is very easy to mine. Everyone only needs to mine for 4 hours and take turns to mine it. Then we'll use a special mask. A protective equipment. That's all. Then, Zhang Feng's mouth was dry and his tongue was dry. He once again talked about the matter of collecting salt at length. In the end, Li Shimin slapped his thigh and said, I understand now. Do you mean to leave the task of collecting salt to us? Lao Li is not bad. Has your brain finally come back? Li Shimin knew that Zhang Feng was mocking him, but he didn't care. Why were there so many people eyeing Longyu Dao? On one hand, it really was a strategic military location. More importantly, its salt mines controlled most of the countries in the western regions. This was also the reason why the Tang Dynasty stationed Qing Yaojin's army in Longyu. On one hand, it was to guard against others, but more importantly, it was to collect salt. Every year, the Tang Dynasty would take out 1,000 taels of silver to pay for the cost of mining and refining salt, but few people dared to mine it. In the end, the Tang Dynasty had to use criminals, slaves and prisoners to mine it. However, the effect was minimal. Now, Zhang Feng actually said that he would give this to him? What was the meaning of this? Li Shimin was dumbfounded. Brother Zhang Feng, the mining rights of this salt mine are concentrated in the hands of His Majesty, and His Majesty is personally in charge of it. You know about this, right? You're asking me to do it? Forgive me for being slow-witted and not understanding what you mean. Zhang Feng knew that Li Shimin didn't understand. He said again, to put it bluntly, it's a contracting system. Isn't the Tang Dynasty abandoned now? And all industries basically use the slavery system, but even so, the efficiency is still low. Do you know why? Why? Efficiency. Everything is relative. Even slaves know that if they do it today, they have to do it tomorrow. So why do they work so hard? It's the same for everything. They can't see hope, so they only have hope. Without hope, they only know how to eat and wait for death. How can they maximize efficiency like this? Without hope? Efficiency? Li Shimin and Wei Zheng had long been used to this new term. But after Zhang Feng said this, Li Shimin asked, you mean to use the technology of making salt in exchange for the right to mine table salt? But efficiency, Is it like a general who always misses his wife and children at home when he goes out to war? Although their understanding was very one-sided, it was good enough that they understood. Zhang Feng didn't expect the two businessmen of the Tang dynasty to understand what the later generations knew. He nodded and said, "That's right. It's similar to that. Since we've already said this, I happen to have a bold plan, but I don't know if you dare to do it." Zhang Feng was a little regretful. He felt good for a moment of posturing, but he had to use countless posturing to perfect this posturing. However, Zhang Feng didn't regret it. Who told him to have so much free time now? Moreover, he also had to plan for the future. When Li Shimin took out more than 4,000 taels of gold, he already had a plan. He couldn't help but say in a low voice, "I have a business deal that can guarantee that at least 100 generations of you will be in trouble. It can even surpass the 5 surnames and 7 Wangs. But it depends on whether the few of you have the guts to do it." Do you know why I'm talking about efficiency? Li Shimin was already shocked. Hearing this, he could only shake his head. Zhang Feng said word by word, "I want to start a cooperative." Chapter 111. Co-op? What was that? Li Shimin was completely dumbfounded. He did not understand. Even Wei Zheng, who had always been known for his wisdom, was stunned at this moment. He stuttered and asked, "What's a co-op?" Zhang Feng decided to let it go. After all, there were only 2 people here, Lao Li and Old Wei. Moreover, they had already said so much today. If they did not make things clear, these 2 would definitely not leave. Do you still remember the locust incident? Yes. How could we forget about that? Li Shimin and Wei Zheng said in unison again. All right. It's good that you haven't forgotten about it. This matter started with the chicken and duck army. I've said before that the chicken and duck army is one way to solve the locust plague. But there's another way. That is to eat cicada pupae. Eat cicada pupae. You've seen it too. The locust eggs around Chang, and have all been eaten to death, right? Li Shimin blushed. He did not expect that either. He did not know which big mouth had spread the news. Now, even if he wanted to eat it, he had to buy it from Longyu Road at a high price. At the thought of this, Li Shimin gritted his teeth. I know about this. I don't know which bastard spread the news. Don't be so agitated. Sit. Zhang Feng was a little speechless. With such big mouths like you, it would be strange if no one knew about it. Now, look at the price of the locust eggs, which were originally worthless now. More than 10 copper coins per caddy. And it's priceless. Do you know what this means? Li Shimin also wanted to know, so he said directly, Brother Zhang Feng. We're brothers, so if you have something to say, just say it. Otherwise, I'll always feel uneasy and uncomfortable. All right. Zhang Feng patted Li Shimin on the shoulder, indicating for him to calm down. This matter started with the locust problem. It's not over yet. You know it too, but what do you think about this business? Hearing this, Li Shimin pondered for a while and really thought of it. Do you mean that the people in Chang'an City are all eager to dig out locust eggs outside Chang'an City? Yeah. This was the hope. What was this thing? In your eyes, this is food. But in their eyes, this was their life. 10 copper coins per caddy. They can get 8 copper coins and this thing grows naturally in the soil. There's no cost involved. Moreover, these 8 copper coins are enough to feed an ordinary family for a day. Even the elderly, the weak, women and children can do this. What do you think will change in Chang'an? Changes? Li Shimin and Wei Zheng were dumbfounded. During this period of time, because of the matter of Longyu and Tubo, he was extremely busy. How could he be in the mood to understand the recent situation in Chang'an? Zhang Feng was speechless. To think that you're still a businessman. Why didn't he lose all the cloth in his pants? Don't you look at the market? Didn't you notice that everyone in Chang'an City is smiling? Didn't you notice that everyone's purchasing power in Chang'an City has increased by a lot? Now that you mention it, I really did notice it. I was puzzled at first, but now I finally understand. All of this is because of the locust's eggs? As the minister of the Secretariat, how could Wei Jing not know about all this? However, he was just puzzled as to why Chang'an City had suddenly generated so much tax revenue. So, it was because of the locust's eggs? Old Wei is still the most meticulous. Lali, it's fine now. Learn from Old Wei. Don't just worry about the trivial matters. Go and ask about the important matters of the imperial court. Li Shimin rolled his eyes. Wei Zheng, on the other hand, was pleased and quickly asked for advice again. Then, Brother Zhang Feng, what is this cooperative that you mentioned? Zhang Feng almost stumbled. A cooperative is not. Let's put it this way. Did we make a lot of money because of the water wheel? Yes. Wei Zheng and Li Shimin nodded. It was more than just making a lot of money. That was a huge profit. And it was a business without any capital. At this time, Li Shimin was still thinking about whether to repair the palace. Now that Zhang Feng mentioned it, was he thinking about the money? Sure enough, it was not out of Li Shimin's expectations. Zhang Feng chuckled. My 4,500 taels, I'm sure all of you have that much, right? Then take it out now. Let's make it big. Lend it all out. If we can't solve it, we'll give it away. Give it away? Li Shimin touched Zhang Feng's head in confusion. After confirming that he was not sick, Zhang Feng continued, it's free. Let's put it this way. Let's add up our money and open a bank. A bank? Understand? A bank? They knew this. Then Zhang Feng was thinking of, Zhang Feng knew that they were thinking the wrong way. He smiled mysteriously and said, we'll give the money to the people so that they can buy some food. Then we'll take over the land from the rich merchants and dukes. Anyway, it's the landlord's family. Li Shimin and Wei Zheng were even more confused. What could that godforsaken thing do other than grow crops? They could not help but stare innocently and asked, well then? Chapter 112. Li Shimin was a little speechless. Was this the credit union he was talking about? What was the use of giving the money away? Wasn't that a waste of money? If he had the time, he might as well just give the money away. He might even be able to make them happy. Also, the land had already become theirs. How could he rent it? How could he do that? Can you make flowers grow on the ground? The two of them, who were originally in high spirits, could not help but look at each other. It was over. Zhang Feng had gone crazy. Li Shimin could not help but wring his hands. If he had more care and companionship, how could Zhang Feng be like this? He was too lonely. That was why he was hysterical. Brother Zhang Feng, it's all my fault. I didn't spend much time with you, so you're like this now. Tomorrow? I promise I'll find the best doctor in the Tang Dynasty to treat you tomorrow. Rest well today. Don't do anything stupid. Zhang Feng was dumbfounded. He was just getting excited. What was wrong with these two? Sick. In an instant, Zhang Feng exploded. You're the one who's sick. Your whole family is sick. Laoli, is that how you curse me? You don't understand what I'm saying. Let me put it this way. You haven't forgotten what I said before, right? Now, the salt mines are basically dug by slaves or prisoners. They don't have any hope. But if we contract it, pay for people to dig it, and provide protective measures, do you think that people won't come? No. Why? Because they have hope. You pay and sponsor them. They have their own money, and they can use the money to repair their houses and supplement their household income. You can even provide them with jobs. They only need to pay a copper coin interest every day. Do you think they won't do something like that? Are they fools? Let's start with the locust plague. Look, how much money did you make from the cocoons? What did you pay? Nothing, right? But what about the current situation? The entire Tang dynasty knew that locust eggs could nourish the kidneys and prolong one's life. Just because of this? An ordinary thing that only chickens and ducks can eat is now more expensive than pork. Why is that? Wasn't it all because there was hope? People who ate wanted to live long and strong, while ordinary people wanted to earn money to support their families. This is a cycle. Do you know anything about business? It's not just agriculture. You can also set up the business routes and invest in the Longyu Dao's business system that is about to collapse due to the drought. This way, won't they become your labor force? You don't even have to fart and you can steadily get money? Zhang Feng rolled his eyes and narrated the matter in detail. Li Shimin and Li Yundong were stunned as they listened. Although in the eyes of Zhang Feng this was the simplest thing, in the eyes of Li Shimin and Wei Zheng this was not the case. This was King unprecedented pioneering work. If this was really done, it would cause an unprecedented impact on the current economy and the entire Tang dynasty as a whole. It was the impact of economic recovery. Just like the case of the locust eggs, this was a good example. Not only did it not make the disaster caused by the drought in Longyu worse, but it also turned waste into treasure. The people of Longyu did not panic because of the drought, but instead, everyone was living a comfortable life. What was this? This was all Zhang Feng's doing. If Zhang Feng knew now that he really had 40 million taels of gold in his hands, what would happen to the Tang dynasty? Was this not what the Tang dynasty needed now? Now, after the Xuanwu Gate incident, although Li Shimin succeeded in ascending to the throne, he also had to bear the infamy. Even now, there were still people who scolded him for not being legitimate, and for killing his father and brother to ascend to the throne. Although no one dared to say it in front of him, he knew that many people were talking about him behind his back. Although he really did not care about all this, who would know that every midnight he would be tortured by guilt to the point of wanting to die. He also wanted to be a good emperor and be respected by the people. Moreover, this year he signed the Wei River alliance with the Turks in humiliation. What? Wasn't it to give the Tang dynasty a chance to breathe? But it was also because of this that the Confucian officials in the court winked at him and scolded him every day. But since solving the drought in Longyu province and the Tubo incident, his reputation in the court had obviously increased, but this was not enough. Li Shimin knew. He lacked an opportunity. A way to solve the current predicament of the Tang dynasty once and for all. This was also the reason why Li Shimin lowered his status and came to Zhang Feng every day. He just wanted to get a real way of governing the country from Zhang Feng. It would be best if he could solve the current economic slump of the Tang dynasty once and for all. Now he saw hope in this cooperative. Therefore Li Shimin stood up. He burst out with a domineering aura that almost made Wei Jing faint. He stared at Zhang Feng and asked word by word, "Zhang Feng, what you said, can it be implemented in the entire Tang dynasty?" Chapter 113. The domineering aura that Li Shimin suddenly exuded frightened Zhang Feng. Wei Jing also panicked. He knew what Li Shimin was thinking. But now he was exuding a domineering aura which should not have happened. He hurriedly said, "Lao Li, I know you're excited to be able to revitalize the family business, but this is not an urgent matter. We have to think about it at length. And this matter can't be explained in a few words. If you really want to develop the so-called cooperative, you have to first understand the benefits and drawbacks of this thing, right?" While speaking, seeing that Li Shimin's expression had eased, Wei Jing was slightly relieved. "Brother Zhang Feng, you don't know? Lao Li had some things in his early years. Although his business is very big now, his uncles and elders don't think highly of him. They all said that his position as the head of the family was not rightfully obtained, so, when he heard what you said, he was so excited. He wants to prove himself too much." Li Shimin also recovered a little after being buffered by Wei Zhang. Then he apologetically clasped his fists and said, "Brother Zhang Feng, I was a little excited just now. But this matter, I hope you can keep it a secret because I don't want to." "Come on." Zhang Feng laughed disdainfully. He said jokingly, "Do you need to keep it a secret? Enough. No one likes to poke their nose into other people's business. Do you think everyone is like you, who has nothing to do but to think about the palace?" "I suddenly discovered a secret." Zhang Feng looked up and down at Li Shimin and said. Hearing this, Li Shimin was shocked. He and Wei Jing looked at each other. Did he know? What did he detect from the aura just now? Li Shimin's mind could not help but gradually become active. If he found out, then so be it. Since that was the case, it was better to be honest with each other. Although he might lose Zhang Feng as a friend if he were to be honest now, he did not want that at all. But now he, Li Shimin, had no other choice. Moreover, he knew what this meant. "All right. I'll lay my cards on the table." Li Shimin paused. But at this moment, Zhang Feng interrupted him, pointed at Li Shimin's head and said, "Lao Li, is there something wrong with your head?" Li Shimin was dumbfounded. Wei Jing, on the other hand, burst out laughing. He hurriedly covered his mouth and turned around. Zhang Feng continued, "You're not the only one with a brain problem. Old Sun, Old Qin, and even you, Old Wei, all have brain problems." Hearing this, Wei Jing grimaced and was about to say that his whole family had brain problems, but he was stopped by Li Shimin's eyes. Zhang Feng got up, looked at the oiled paper on the door and said, "Actually, Lao Li, I envy you." "Really? At the very least, you still have your brothers. However, your experience reminds me of someone. Your experience is very similar to his, but it's like heaven and earth." "Who?" Li Shimin heard this and asked seriously. "The current emperor." Boom. Hearing this, Li Shimin was shocked. Wei Jing was also shocked. Zhang Feng continued, "Actually, you all know everything about the current emperor. I didn't want to talk about this. But since you're already like this, I'll talk about it. Actually, the emperor that everyone understands is not what everyone knows. When the current emperor was the king of Qin, that person promised to give him the throne in the future. But that person didn't keep his promise. When he saw that the king of Qin's power was getting stronger day by day, he started to panic and appointed another person as the crown prince. Although Zhang Feng used that person and him, Li Shimin knew that he was talking about Li Yuan and Li Jianqing. This is actually nothing. The king of Qin was still fighting for the people of the Tang dynasty. But that crown prince didn't think so. He thought that the king of Qin was going to take his throne, so he couldn't sleep and eat well. He did it and weakened the king of Qin, but the king of Qin still didn't say anything for the sake of his brother. But his concession made everyone think that the king of Qin was weak, so many people in the court joined the crown prince's faction. This was the key to the king of Qin's sudden outburst. During the Black Tortoise Gate incident, the king of Qin wanted to ask his father why he sacrificed himself for a righteous cause. But the crown prince saw it as a betrayal. Because of this, the Black Tortoise Gate incident happened. Then, in his desperation, the king of Qin killed his brother and forced his father to abdicate. Everyone said that he killed his brother, but who could understand his difficulties? He only wanted to live on and seek justice. However, the world only remembers his mistakes, but no one knows why he only sleeps for 4 hours every day. After the Black Tortoise Gate incident, although everyone didn't say anything, they were dissatisfied. It was all thanks to the help of Fang Du, Wei Zhangsun, Cheng and the others that he didn't become a loner. And, the current emperor's experience is very similar to yours, Lao Li. Chapter 114. Li Shimin choked. This was the first time he cried in front of outsiders since he became the emperor of Qin. In the dead of night, someone as strong as him would wake up crying in Empress Jiangxuan's arms. What? Because of his pressure. But no one understood him. But, now, at this moment, the way Li Shimin looked at Zhang Feng changed. He suddenly wanted to get along with Zhang Feng like this. It was hard to find a confidant, but how hard could it be to find a confidant of the emperor? There was no one at all, okay? People in the world only wanted to get benefits from him. Although Wei Jing, Zhang Sun, Fang Xianling, Du Ruhui, Qing Yaojin, and the others could be counted as friends, they were just friends. They didn't understand Li Shimin's heart. Zhang Feng couldn't bear to see people cry. Now he saw Li Shimin cry. His head was about to explode. I'm Lao Li. You're already in your 30s and nearing your 40s. Is this all you've got? Although I don't know how you got your position as the clan head, and I won't ask how you got it, I have seen your character. If there was a problem with your character, do you think that someone as smart as I, Zhang Feng, would be your friend? Look at His Majesty. How much burden did he bear? Even when the Turks went south and signed the Wei River Alliance, you should know, right? He was scolded by millions of people. But did he retreat? No. Why did he do that? Old Wei, get up and tell Lao Li. Wei Jing heard this. He had mixed feelings. Everyone knows about this. His Majesty wants the millions of people of the Tang Dynasty to have a stable living environment. After all, the people of the Tang Dynasty are already overwhelmed by the years of war. If he doesn't sign the alliance now, the Tang Dynasty is likely to be destroyed in an instant. Li Shimin's sobs slowly subsided. Zhang Feng pointed at Wei Zheng and said, Look, Old Wei is so steady. Look at you. You're already so old and you're still crying? Don't you feel ashamed? In fact, as businessmen, you should know very well about the Tang Dynasty's economy and armaments. The Tang Dynasty can't afford another war. The national treasury was empty, and the soldiers and supplies were scarce. At this time, the Turks came to take advantage of this. Looting a burning house. If you were the current emperor, you would... What? How? Zhang Feng almost roared the last few words. Lao Li was his rare friend. And he was his god of wealth. There were many things that he needed his help with in the future. He didn't want to see Lao Li collapse because of a small thing. Moreover, compared to Li Shimin, where was this even when compared to him? Lao Li, I don't know what you've been through, but think about it. The emperor can bear the criticism of the world. What about you? You can't bear such a small setback? I know you're eager to revitalize the family business and prove your strength. But there's a process, isn't there? This cooperative may seem simple, but if there's a mistake in any of the links, then all the money will be wasted. It's the same as solving Tubo's problem. If you're so eager to do it, I can only sneak out of Chang and return to Mount Wutai to continue my cultivation. Why? Li Shimin asked in confusion. At this time he had recovered his emotions. In fact, he had recovered long ago. It was just that after hearing about the Black Tortoise Gate, he wanted to hear Zhang Feng's opinion. That was why the scene just now happened. When Zhang Feng saw that Li Shimin had stopped crying, he hurriedly changed the topic. At this time, when he saw that Zhang Feng wanted to leave the city in the middle of the night, Li Shimin hurriedly asked without thinking, Why are you in such a hurry to leave the city? Zhang Feng rolled his eyes at him. It's all because of you. If you dare to tell anyone about such a ridiculous thing, I can guarantee that the Imperial Guards will kill you tonight. The Emperor is not a lunatic. Is there a need to do that? Li Shimin muttered softly. Zhang Feng was not going to let it go. There's no problem with the Emperor, but have you thought about how ridiculous this matter is? Who would dare to do such a thing in the past? Who has done it before? No one, Li Shimin said truthfully. Then that's it. Zhang Feng spread out his hands and said, You also know that no one knew about this before. If you tell the emperor now, the first thing the emperor will think of is that you, old Li, are deceiving the public with your lies. He will cut you down first. Tell me, are you reviving the family business or are you courting death? Li Shimin thought about it and agreed. If other people dared to talk to him like this, with his temper he would really kill them. Li Shimin could not help but have mixed feelings in his heart. From the first time he met Zhang Feng, he had secretly sent people to investigate Zhang Feng's background. But after investigating, there was not a trace of clues. When the Tang Dynasty was first established, many people were homeless and Chang and city was even more so. It could be said that at least half of the people in Chang and city were newly registered. Therefore, Zhang Feng's identity became even more mysterious. If he did not have a strong Guangzhong accent, Li Shimin would definitely think that he really fell from the sky. Thinking of this, Li Shimin looked at Zhang Feng carefully and said, "Many times I've been wondering where you are from and who your master is. Can you tell me now, where did you learn this skill?" Zhang Feng suddenly became interested. He stared at Li Shimin and asked, "Do you really want to know?" Chapter 115. I used to be on Mount Wutai. Stop. Li Shimin interrupted Zhang Feng speechlessly. His face was as black as the bottom of a pot. He thought that this time, Zhang Feng would tell him his background, but he didn't. It was still the same excuse. It wasn't that Zhang Feng didn't want to, but if he told him the truth, would he believe him? It would be strange if he believed him. What would he say? Oh, he would say that he came from thousands of years in the future? Then Zhang Feng wasn't that stupid. If he said that, Lao Li would be the first to think that he was crazy. If others knew, Zhang Feng could guarantee that he would be lying in Li Shimin's private museum and be dissected for research in less than a day. That was not impossible. What was Li Shimin's taboo? What he was most afraid of was supernatural powers. If he knew that his abilities were brought from the future, what would he say? That the Tang Dynasty was destroyed 300 years later? After him, Li Ji became the emperor and married his concubine. Then his concubine, Li Ji's wife, became the first empress in the history of Wuxia? Who would believe that? No one would believe it. On the contrary, he would be treated as a monster and still couldn't escape the fate of being dissected for research. So for his life, before the system was activated, he could live safely. Zhang Feng decided that no matter who asked, he was the little Taoist priest on Mount Wutai. No one would believe it. Then go and find it. Anyway, there was no record of him in this world. It was useless to find it. Seeing that Zhang Feng was unwilling to say, Li Shimin didn't insist. He asked again in a serious voice, "I don't know where you came from or what your purpose is, but you have to remember that this is the Tang Dynasty, and you are also a Tang. That's enough. I don't know where you came from and I don't know where you will go in the future, but at this moment we are still friends, right?" Zhang Feng was silent. Finally he nodded. "Yes, we're friends." Zhang Feng didn't know what he would do in the future, nor did he know what he would do in the future. But now Lao Li was his friend. Lao Li was a friend who had accompanied him when he was the loneliest. "No matter what I'm going to do in the future, you old Li are my friend." Zhang Feng seemed to feel that the atmosphere was a little heavy. He picked up the bowl of wine and gulped it down in big gulps. He choked so much that tears were rolling down his face. It was a lie to say that he wasn't lonely. Being a stranger in a foreign land, he had never had such a feeling before. However, ever since he had crossed over, this feeling of homesickness had become even stronger. The reason why he made good wine and delicacies was not for Lao Li and the others, but because he wanted to remind himself of the past. He was afraid. He was afraid that after he slept, all the memories that belonged to modern people would disappear without a trace. He was even afraid that everything that had happened in the past would turn into a dream, assimilated into this era. Therefore he was very lonely. He didn't want to have any interaction with this world. He was afraid that he would lose himself. In the end, when there was nothing left, he would forget the past, forget everything that had happened in the modern era. He was lonely. When he was at his loneliest and most helpless, Lao Li walked into his world. At first, when he saw Lao Li, he felt that Lao Li was a person with a story. Otherwise, why would he be so confused and helpless? In half a year, he could be said to be a lonely person who licked each other's wounds with Lao Li. Li Shimin patted Zhang Feng's shoulder. He also saw a trace of loneliness and sorrow in his eyes. He understood this feeling. Wei Jing was silent. He was a smart person. That was why he chose to keep quiet. After a moment, Zhang Feng shook his head. "Let's not talk about this. Let's talk about the things in front of us first. There are too many things. Let's start from the most straightforward part. As Zhang Feng spoke, he took out the notes that Lao Li had just given him and said, "This kind of thing only exists in the government and rich businessmen when they make large transactions. But what if our credit union collects all the gold, silver, and paper money, and then we change it into notes like this?" Wei Jing frowned slightly. "Are you trying to?" "That's right." Zhang Feng bowed. "I know what you mean. I don't mean to change anything. Just like this note. It only exists in the places set by the government for use and exchange, and in some rich businessmen's businesses. But have you thought about it? If we change all the currencies in our businesses to this, what will happen?" Wei Jing was shocked. Li Shimin was also shocked. He looked at Zhang Feng quietly. Zhang Feng changed from his previous decadence. He smiled faintly and said, "This kind of transaction only exists in your businesses. Whether it's medicinal herbs, cloth, fur, and other businesses, you can give them this kind of thing. After they get it, they will take it to your other businesses to exchange or buy it. It's a whole set of business processes without capital. And what we need to do is to link our technology with Jiangsun Wuji's. Let's start with the production of table salt. What do you think?" Chapter 116. Silence. Silence. There was a deathly silence. Li Shimin thought that he was an expert in scheming. However, he did not know that Zhang Feng had dug a big hole for him from the very beginning. Genius? Genius? Could this express his opinion of Zhang Feng at this time? No. Because if Zhang Feng was really a businessman, or if the matter in the imperial court had been settled, he would definitely implement this idea as soon as possible. But, unfortunately, although he had the heart now, he also knew that although Zhang Feng did not say it, his heart was as clear as Ming Jing. During this period, because of the outbreak of the drought, a large number of people immediately rushed into Chang and city to escape. They were just for a mouthful of food. But what could he do? In addition to providing relief to the disaster victims, he also had to deal with the civil officials in the imperial court, be careful about the punishment of the natural disaster, and deal with the financial shortage of the national treasury. Li Shimin suddenly felt very tired. Really tired. Li Shimin looked at Zhang Feng for a long time with a complicated expression. "Brother Zhang Feng, I know what you are thinking. You want to use this method to completely stimulate the enthusiasm of the people and their hope for life. Your method is very good, but have you considered what will happen if you screw it up? This matter is not something that only the merchants can participate in." Li Shimin's eyes flickered. "Do you know how many people's road to wealth will be blocked if this matter is exposed?" "Road to wealth?" Zhang Feng smiled. "Lao Li, I know what you are worried about, but have you ever thought that if this matter is successful, the people who will benefit will not be you or me? I'm just a guide. I know what we are facing. You will have to face the opposition of your family, the exploitation of your uncles, and the others, but—" Zhang Feng stared at Li Shimin with shining eyes and said, "If you learn from the emperor, you will find that what you are doing is insignificant. Salt is your guiding light. I think, if His Majesty really isn't the kind of emperor that I said he was, or if he really doesn't have the courage, then just pretend that I didn't say anything today." "Courage? You have given me a bolt from the blue." Li Shimin smiled bitterly. "I know. But do you know that although this matter will let the officials in the imperial court taste the sweetness, do you know how many people will run on the cooperative you mentioned? If we provoke the emperor, then we will all die." The emperor's anger. Zhang Feng sighed slightly. This was the Tang Dynasty. The feudal Tang Dynasty. I remember that when I was traveling around the world I heard a saying, "Water can carry a boat, but it can also capsize a boat." If you really want to make a fortune and protect yourself, I hope that you can send this saying to the Lord Jiangsun. The Lord Jiangsun will certainly present it to the emperor, and then the emperor will make a decision. Water can carry a boat, but it can also capsize a boat? Li Shimin was a little confused. Wei Jing saw that the atmosphere was stifling. She didn't want Zhang Feng to make up a story for her, but it was actually true. She didn't want to make things awkward because of the emperor's current predicament. She smiled faintly and said, "Aren't we discussing how to get rich? Why is it getting more and more depressing?" "Brother Zhang Feng, Lao Li cares too much about his family. If he makes a mistake, it will lead to the destruction of the entire family. I also know that you want to help Lao Li, but this matter needs to be done slowly." "That's true." Zhang Feng heard this and patted his head. The depressing feeling just now disappeared. He smiled and picked up the wine bowl again. "I was too anxious just now. Lao Li was not there. We are true brothers, so I was a little anxious. Come, let's have a toast. Then I'll tell you the whole process of this matter. Just take it as a joke." Li Shimin's eyes flashed. Then he smiled bitterly. You scared me so much just now. Well, this matter needs to be taken slowly. At least wait until we have some connections in the court. Anyway, this way of making a fortune is not something that others can learn. Yes, yes, yes. As they spoke, the three of them laughed and laughed again. However, Wei Zheng and Li Shimin's faces faintly showed that they had something on their minds. What were we talking about just now? Zhang Feng asked dizzily. He glanced around and saw the banknotes on the table. No, they were not called banknotes anymore. This thing became popular after the Song Dynasty. Now, it was just a kind of thing that circulated between the government and merchants. It was also the origin of banknotes in the Song Dynasty. It was obvious what kind of impact the prosperity of the Tang Dynasty would have on the later generations. He was very grateful to this world, this Tang Dynasty, and the people who created this thing. Although the banknotes were just a piece of paper now, there was only the seal of the government and the exchange merchant on it. There was nothing else. However, to Zhang Feng this was a treasure that could make a fortune. Compared to the bulging belly of a 10-month pregnant woman, Zhang Feng was eager to walk the world with only a few banknotes. Zhang Feng picked up the banknotes and smiled mysteriously. We still have to get this thing out. Not only do we have to get it out, we also have to find people to publicize it and come up with a lot of coupons. This way we can promote this thing in the fastest and safest way. Chapter 117. What kind of weird stuff is this? First it was a cooperative and now it's a coupon? Do you think it's a game? Li Shimin was speechless. I feel like my IQ is not online when I'm with this kid. Where did all my wisdom go? Li Shimin slowly sorted out his thoughts, interrupting the eloquent Zhang Feng. You mean to say that this salt is only a test? If His Majesty approves or tacitly approves, we can carry it out on a small scale? If the Ministry of Justice, the Ministry of Agriculture, and the Ministry of Works find out, we'll be beheaded. I said you're stupid, but you really can't think straight. Zhang Feng rolled his eyes at Li Shimin and said, Didn't I say it before? What's Zhang Sun Wuji's role in this? He's the boss of the Ministry of Justice. As long as you cling to his thigh and drag him down, wouldn't that be perfect? Li Shimin's face darkened. You're urging one of his officials, the Minister of Justice, to do this in front of me? Just you wait, you'll be caned when you enter the imperial court. You're urging me to rope in his officials to do this business under His Majesty's nose, and he's the Minister of Justice at that. If His Majesty finds out, aren't you afraid of being caned? Li Shimin glared at Zhang Feng and asked. Zhang Feng waved his hand. Based on my observation of His Majesty, do you think His Majesty is like you? Ever since the Xuanwu Gate and the Wei River incident, the opposition to His Majesty in the imperial court and among the people has become stronger and stronger. During this period of time, their views have changed slightly. Do you think His Majesty doesn't want to establish his authority? He wants to. But he doesn't have a chance. Now that the Tang Dynasty has just stabilized, what does the Tang Dynasty need the most? What we need the most is economic recovery so that the Tang Dynasty can operate again. Only in this way can we ensure that the Tang Dynasty stands tall. But now the plague of locusts has stirred up a storm in the court. We can't hide it anymore. Although I don't know how Lao Li's servants leaked the news and what they said, I think His Majesty is up to something. Li Shimin was shocked. How could he have guessed it? Zhang Feng said again, Do you know about the hunting of chickens, ducks, and pigs in Chang'an City? Li Shimin and Wei Jing quickly nodded. Wei Jing rubbed his chin. That incident caused a huge uproar in the city, but it ended abruptly. Who doesn't know? That's it. Why did the emperor end things so hastily? It was because of the opposition. Moreover, he also felt guilty. If there was no plague of locusts, wouldn't he be unable to stand up? So he's waiting. Waiting for what? Wei Jing also felt that it was strange. Previously he only thought that the emperor was exaggerating. But after learning about Longyo's situation and the countless insect eggs in the ground, Wei Jing also had some doubts, but he didn't dare to ask. As a subject, he didn't dare to guess the emperor's thoughts. However, at this time, Zhang Feng said it without any hesitation. He also wanted to hear what Zhang Feng knew. Li Shimin was also interested at this time. He wanted to know how much Zhang Feng had guessed. The emperor wants to take the opportunity to suppress the Confucian officials who are the most opposed to him. Li Shimin was shocked. He guessed it all right. How did Zhang Feng guess it? Could it be that he observed it in the market? But, wasn't this a little too scary? But this was no longer important. This person must be used by me, Li Shimin. With him, I'll definitely get twice the result with half the effort. Just as Li Shimin was immersed in endless emotions, Wei Zheng was also shocked. Since he followed the emperor to this small tavern, What kind of information came out from here that was useless? What kind of thing didn't shock the world? Even Tubo and other countries were schemed against by Zhang Feng. They even cheated 40 million taels of gold from Tubo. This time they accidentally found this kind of salt. Although in Zhang Feng's eyes this thing was small and not enough to arouse his interest, Wei Jing knew that this thing would definitely cause a bloody storm if it was placed in the Tang Dynasty. Why did Tubo and other countries covet Longyu Road? Why did the Tang Dynasty send a large number of troops to guard Longyu Road? Did they have nothing to do? Or was that place rich? None of them. That place was either a desert or a wasteland. It was because there were salt mines that controlled the western region and half of the Tang Dynasty. They also needed to eat salt. Therefore, no matter what, Longyu Road must be controlled by the Tang Dynasty. This was equivalent to choking the throat of the surrounding countries. But once this salt came out, once the news spread out, Wei Jing didn't dare to think about it. He didn't want to think about it. Then it would definitely be a bloody storm. And at this time, if the gold, silver and other things were exchanged for this piece of paper, then, it didn't mean that the Tang Dynasty would seize the money of the people in the world in a short time. They only needed a piece of paper to control the surrounding economy. A layer of fine white hair appeared on Wei Jing's forehead. Too vicious. Damn it. This Zhang Feng was really King inhumane. Chapter 118. You mean to say that you want the Tang Dynasty to control all the finance of the surrounding countries in the hands of the government? Wei Jing said in a trembling voice. Smart. Zhang Feng, after spending a lot of effort, finally managed to establish the hegemonic financial system of the United States in this prosperous era of the Tang Dynasty. Salt was the key to establishing the hegemonic financial system of America. Although he could have done the same in the past by controlling food and other items, it was not a long-term solution. Moreover, although food was good, it was not easy to store. However, gold and silver were different. Even at this time, Li Shimin, who was slow to react, was shocked by this plan. This was 2F** King crazy, 2F** King crazy. Li Shimin was going crazy. He cursed in his heart. If he had thought of this earlier, he would not have been so aggrieved. The Tang Dynasty would have become the world's hegemon long ago. But it was not too late now. At this time, Wei Jing and Li Shimin were both shocked. When he looked at Zhang Feng, he was already in awe. Brother Zhang Feng, what are you thinking in that head of yours? So vicious? No. This is the way to rule a country. How did you know? Don't tell me that you learned this on Mount Wutai. Li Shimin grabbed Zhang Feng's hand excitedly. He almost bowed down to him. Zhang Feng looked at Li Shimin's eyes. He had goosebumps all over his body. He almost spat out the wine he had just drunk. I say, Lao Li, you understand this, but can we not be gay? I'm a man. Although Li Shimin did not know what gay was, he understood the last sentence. I'll remember what you said. I'll go back and find you the most beautiful woman in the world. Do you want a Hu woman? Or tell me which family's daughter do you like? Lao Li, I'll go and propose marriage for you. Don't. Lao Tzu wants to find it himself. Zhang Feng almost wanted to say yes, but when he thought of their taste, he stopped. We have to find it ourselves. Speaking of which, although your plan is wonderful, have you ever thought that if one part of the plan goes wrong, you'll lose everything? Furthermore, you didn't even mention where we are. Isn't this a lack of consideration? In the end, it was Wei Jing who hit the nail on the head. Zhang Feng patted Li Shimin's shoulder. Look at old Wei, you have to learn from him. That brain of his was calm. I've always wondered how you, Lao Li, managed to preserve your family's business until now when you're so easily startled. About that. Before Li Shimin became anxious, Zhang Feng went straight to the point. Salt is a guide and the two of you are also guides. As guides, you just need to lure Zhang Sun Wuji into the water, and you just need to wait to collect the money. At this time it is national politics. If you participate in it, then what do you think? If you don't want to, Zhang Sun and the emperor will turn a blind eye to it, but what about the ministers in the court? Will those guys who are blocked from making money let you go? As soon as he said this, Li Shimin and Wei Jing couldn't help but feel a chill down their spines. What they had to face was the 5 surnames and 7 hopes. How could this be solved with just a simple word? Then Brother Zhang, what's your opinion? Li Shimin cupped his hands with a dignified expression. He no longer had the playful smile from before. We have to start from this piece of paper. Zhang Feng picked up the note on the table and said, you can get the approval document from Zhang Sun for this thing. It's the proof that the government contracted the salt smelting industry. Then this thing will depend on how you manage it. I still think that you should learn from Longyu. Also, I've already said it before, so I won't say more now. Figure it out yourself. When it comes to finding people, you must find those honest people from the Zhuang family as well as those who are slaves. As long as you pay to help them regain their commoner status, help them buy a family property, and then lend them the settlement fee, so that they can have the capital to settle down. At this time, the proof that you give them money will become their slave contract. And it will be a proof that they are willing to sell their lives. Think about it, how can you make them sell their lives? How can you buy their hearts? I don't need to teach you this, right? At this time, the matter is half done. At this time, you can deduct the interest from the money you lent them from their monthly wages. Then you can give them food, meat, and bills in place of silver and copper coins. Let them take these things to your shops and exchange them for daily necessities or money and food. Here's the point. Zhang Feng coughed, revealing his white teeth. At this time, think about it, your cycle will begin. The money will be in your pockets. Although the notes you pay can be exchanged for money in the process, won't it promote your other businesses again? And there must be a reward and punishment system. Those who do it quickly and perform well. Anyway, you have a lot of salt. Give them half a caddy of salt and they will be grateful. Won't they brag about it? In this way there will be more and more people. Now, the business that everyone wants to avoid has become a delicious cake. Do you think that you won't make a lot of money? After Zhang Feng finished speaking, he looked mysteriously at Li Shimin and Wei Zheng, who seemed to have been hit with the pause button, and asked. It depends on whether you have the guts or not. It depends on whether your guts are big enough. How about this business? Chapter 119. Li Shimin had never thought of this before. A problem that had troubled everyone for hundreds of years was easily resolved by a small tavern shopkeeper on the table in an instant. Was he really a god? This plan, although it seemed crazy. However, if Li Shimin came forward, then all of this would not be a problem at all. On the contrary, it would fill his tight treasury with real wealth. However, there was still a problem. Li Shimin could not help but ask, but if this is the case, what will happen if the spies from Tubo and other countries find out? The salt that we sell to Tubo and other countries is the same as before, 3 strings of money for 2 caddies. If they find out at this time, what will happen? Once we produce this salt, what will the price be? The people still can't afford it. Can't afford it? Are you kidding? Zhang Feng stared at Li Shimin. Are you stupid? I said, the people who work for you can give it to you for free. Not only can you give the salt for free, you can give anything for free. Including money, that's how we can form a cooperative. In this way, will the people who take the money be rash? Once they take the money, they have to repay the debt, and with this money they can get endless food and daily necessities. In this way, people will have something to look forward to. Of course, this matter of borrowing money, leave it to the authorities. Don't touch it at all. What? Then how can I make money? Li Shimin was dumbfounded again. Zhang Feng said with anger and laughter, I'll give you a piece of advice. You have to make money, but it has to be limited to your salt mine and your business model. As for borrowing money, if you touch it, you will be robbing money from the authorities. Have you thought about the consequences? Also, what if people borrow money and don't return it to you? What will you do? Won't you still have to report it to the authorities? So, you have to remember my advice. The key to this cooperative is to stand by the side of the government. You just have to let them worry about money. You just have to focus on making money. When the time comes, even if someone doesn't like you, they will have to look at what you have done, right? When they see that you only care about your own business, who would have nothing to do with you? When the time comes, if you want to show up, Zhang Sun Wuji will do it for you. You just have to remember one thing. Leave the matter of money to the authorities. At most, you just have to provide manpower. Run errands and let people know that you are working for the authorities. That way, no one can do anything to you. Genius. Damn it. Madhurf *Kerr, he was a natural-born talent in the business world. However, when the 2 astute people thought about what he said, they suddenly realized that this was the way to rule a country. This was much better than using a knife to cut people, or sending millions of soldiers to attack others. This was what it meant to be an effortless victory. Lao Tzu will hold your money in his hands. Don't you dare touch it? Lao Tzu will cut you off tomorrow. Wonderful. *CK. Li Shimin was so excited that he was going crazy. However, Wei Jing poured cold water on him again. You only mentioned the Tang Dynasty, but you didn't say what the price of the salt would be. The price of the salt is the government's business. It's none of your business. But I suggest that the price of the salt be lowered. At least 10 copper coins per caddy. That way we can ensure that the people of the Tang Dynasty are strong and not weak like chickens. Also, what if Tubo and other places want this salt? Dream on. Wasn't the salt exported by the Tang Dynasty 300 strings of cash per caddy? Then give them 100 strings of cash per caddy. It's best to poison them to death. Wouldn't that be perfect? You're really a genius. If someone is your enemy, it's really unbearable to watch. Li Shimin gave him a thumbs up speechlessly. However, his voice changed. Long Yu Dao's salt will run out sooner or later. If the whole world comes to buy salt, what should we do? Although our Tang Empire has gained a lot in the short term, this is also a crisis. What should we do if we dig all the salt out? That's right, Lin Mingya said with a frown. Zhang Feng was amused when he heard that. Lali, you still don't understand the cooperative. Are the caravans from other countries fools? You can trade too. You can buy salt from other countries at a low price or barter for it. You can collect the difference and use it to fill the salt mines in Longyu. Isn't that perfect? You didn't think of that? You're a merchant. Have you forgotten what you're supposed to do? Do you want to piss off those foreign businessmen who have worked with you? Zhang Feng didn't wait for Li Shimin to finish and continued, not only salt but also grain from Tubo that I mentioned before. You can exchange it with other things. Grain is dead and will be damaged. However, you can mortgage it to the farmers. This will stimulate them to plant and pay back the grain next year. Not only that, you can also use the grain to exchange for resources from other countries. Have you forgotten that this is a cost-free trade? I've been talking about it for months, haven't I? Have you forgotten? Li Shimin was severely despised again. However, this time he was wholeheartedly convinced. He had received too many things this time. He was completely dumbfounded. He hurriedly got up and gave a fist salute. Sorry for disturbing you today. I'm a little dizzy. I need to go back and digest. Li Shimin left in a hurry as he spoke. However, when he reached the door, Zhang Feng seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly asked, Hey, Lao Li, is there anyone in the clan who is better than Empress Xiao of the previous dynasty? He knew that this kid was in love. He even dared to hit him on the head? Li Shimin's legs trembled. He hurriedly slipped away without looking back. Sorry for disturbing you. Goodbye. Chapter 120. They turned 2 streets away. Li Shimin remembered that he came here to ask for a few jars of wine. However, he could not help but smile bitterly when he looked behind him. Wei Jing covered his mouth and snickered from time to time, which made Li Shimin speechless. However, he could not stop him. At this moment, Li Shimin turned around. Wei Jing mentioned again, Your Majesty, this old subject thinks that if the princess were to marry him, it would be a wonderful thing. Furthermore, this old official has observed that this brat Zhang Feng has truly fallen in love with a woman. This old official has carefully thought about it. In the palace, the princess of Xiang City seems to be 17 years old. Enough. Li Shimin glared at Wei Jing coldly. I call him brother now. If I marry my daughter to him, how should I address him? Zhang Feng is really picky. Li Shimin sighed meaningfully. Then he changed the topic and said, What do you think of today's meeting, Prime Minister Wei? Li Shimin decided not to leave. He turned into a dead end with Wei Zheng. At the entrance of the alley, there were layers of imperial guards in linen clothes guarding the entrance. The two of them squatted in the box and chatted about it. Wei Jing pondered seriously for a long time. Then he came up with 4 words. The future is promising. Although it was just these 4 words, Li Shimin's heart was put at ease. In the past, no matter what he did, Wei Jing would jump out to criticize him. However, this time it was the first time Wei Jing was so supportive. Your Majesty, this old subject thinks that this method is feasible. Oh. Li Shimin was shocked again. What? Your Majesty, think about it. The matter with Tubo is not over yet. However, there is still Tuyuhun who is watching from the sidelines. These 2 countries will definitely offer us an endless amount of food. Although half of the food could alleviate the problem of insufficient food and the disaster victims, what about the other half? Are we just going to let him rot? Do you remember the plague of locusts? This was a good time to stock up on grain. Not only that, we can also take the surplus to the grassland to exchange for cattle, sheep, and horses. Cattle, sheep, and other livestock can be lent to the people to raise. We can keep chickens, ducks, and geese to deal with locusts. They can also lay eggs. Isn't this the best of 3? Li Shimin listened with great interest. Prime Minister Wei, you have only met Zhang Feng a few times. Why do I feel that you have changed? His tone is exactly the same as little shopkeeper Zhang Feng's. Li Shimin shook his head. However, at this time, I must have a foolproof plan. Otherwise, I won't be at ease. Moreover, you also know that once this matter is carried out, there is no possibility of retreat. Li Shimin thought about a lot of things. This was not a business deal that was only seen by businessmen. This was a fight for food. snatching food from the mouths of the 5 surnames and 7 Wangs. If he succeeded, all the power of the Tang dynasty would be in his hands. But if he failed, the previous dynasty was a good example. Li Shimin did not want this to happen. Wei Jing fell silent. What the emperor was worried about, was he not the same? Your Majesty, I think that Zhang Feng's actions are unreasonable, but they are not methodical. If we do as he says, there may be unexpected results. If it is possible, why don't we ask Fang Xianling, Du Ruhui and Zhang Sun to discuss it? If it is possible, we can settle this matter today. After all, the plague of locusts waits for no one. Hearing this, Li Shimin's heart sank. This matter was really as Wei Jing said. His plan was very important. The plague of locusts would definitely be an opportunity to take down the 5 surnames and 7 Wangs in the court and suppress them. However, the plague of locusts could not be delayed. If there was a slight hesitation, the Tang dynasty would be in danger when the plague of locusts broke out. Prime Minister Wei, has the thing I secretly arranged in Longyu Road sent back any news? No. Wei Jing sighed deeply. Since Your Majesty issued a secret edict that day to let me personally supervise the chicken and duck army in Longyu Road, I and Marquis Lu made use of the garrison in Longyu Road and secretly made arrangements in various places in Longyu Road. Although many people in the chicken and duck army participated in it, I am still very worried. This plague of locusts seems to be able to survive this year, but next year we may not be so lucky. Oh. Li Shimin was stunned when he heard this. He asked, why do you say so? When the people from the Imperial Astronomer were supervising Longyu Road, Cheng Chumo had been following them. Although that kid is careless, he is still thoughtful. The people from the Imperial Astronomer are worried that there may be less snow this winter, but next year, that is when the plague of locusts that Zhang Feng said will really break out. What? Why didn't you say so earlier? Li Shimin was shocked. Previously, although Zhang Feng said that the plague of locusts would break out this year, Li Shimin had always thought that it would break out this year. But now that June had already appeared, the locusts' eggs in the fields were almost exhausted. How could there be a plague of locusts? But now Li Shimin finally understood. The plague of locusts that Zhang Feng mentioned was next year. It was the 3rd year of Jingguan. Chapter 121. Night quietly shrouded the imperial palace. Although the highest institution of the Tang dynasty was shrouded in darkness, it still exuded a mysterious aura. The Taiji Palace was brightly lit by lanterns. Teams of golden guards in golden armor surrounded the palace. Their eyes were terrifyingly cold, as if they would kill a mouse if they found it. In the depths of the Taiji Palace, pairs of cold eyes were also scanning the palace in the dark. They were the soldiers of Zhuo Qinyo's guards, Qing Yaojin's personal guards. Behind the layers of protection, the atmosphere in the Taiji Palace was so intense that it was almost about to be overturned. Qing Yaojin's face was red with anger. He raised the wine jar and cursed. He could not even straighten his tongue. Mother asterisk Ker, Zhang Feng's temper is exactly the same as mine. Your Majesty, please issue an imperial edict. I guarantee that I will train him to be obedient in a month. Come on, Black Yak. His little chick is yours. In less than 3 days you can tear him apart. Wei Jing's face darkened as he said, I've already told you about this matter. The specific situation is as follows. Now, Zhang Feng's intention and His Majesty's intention is to use Du Ruhui to settle this matter before the Tufan envoys arrive. At the very least, gather all the merchants in Chang and city and discuss it. Du Ruhui glared at Wei Jing and muttered, Why me? Isn't Zhang Sun an expert in this? Why are you even stupider than old Black? Zhang Sun Wuji rolled his eyes fiercely. That little brother Zhang Feng has seen me before. If I go now, we'll all be finished. If I go, you'll have to be prepared for him to guess our identities. Hearing this, everyone was stunned. Qing Yaojin grabbed his hair anxiously. The scalp and fleas shook Fang Xuanling's wine bowl, causing Fang Xianling to frown. But he didn't dare to say anything. When old Qing opened his mouth, it was a bloody mouth. His face was guaranteed to be covered in saliva. I also agree that Lai Guogong is good at a certain segment, but it's not enough. If Duke Liang were to accompany him? Li Shimin's eyes lit up. Permission granted. Without waiting for Fang Xianling to speak, Li Shimin immediately made the decision. Fang Xianling choked and glared at Qing Yaojin until he wanted to hit him. My beloved subjects, do you know what this means if we succeed? That's what it means to have the whole world under our control. All the money in the world is under the control of the Tang dynasty. Even the Qin Emperor and the Han Emperor have never achieved such a feat. Li Shimin was so excited that his lips were trembling. The eyes of the others were also shining at this time. Everyone here was a founding hero of the Tang Dynasty. Who didn't want the provinces and cities of the Tang Dynasty to become Yongchang? Who didn't want the Tang Dynasty to become famous in the world under their hands? After listening to Li Shimin and Wei Zheng's narration, everyone was a little hesitant at first, but after 4 hours of discussion, they finally understood the cause and effect. They were even more shocked by Zhang Feng's wisdom. He had been digging a hole from the beginning. He had dug a hole so big that he had dug a hole for the whole world. Such a talent was still working in a small tavern as a shopkeeper who didn't even have a single customer. What was this? This was an insult to the Tang Dynasty. That was why Qing Yaojin was so angry that he wanted to kidnap Zhang Feng. Now, after the discussion of the matter was settled, Li Shimin hesitated for a while before asking again, "Dear officials, although you and I are monarchs and ministers, you also watched Qing Qian and the other children grow up." When everyone heard this, they immediately perked up. Was the emperor finally going to send the crown prince to Zhang Feng's place? Li Shimin said slowly. In the court, I always felt that Qin Keizhi and Quan Er's studies were a little neglected. Moreover, with the current teaching standards in the palace, does the emperor want to send them to Zhang Feng's place? Wei Zheng's heart was the same as Ming Jing'er's. No one was stupid. This was the second time the emperor had said this. Moreover, he had said it at this time. If that kind of person couldn't think of it, then he should really pack up his things and go back to his hometown to retire. That's right. Li Shimin saw that Wei Zheng had spoken openly. He said with some hesitation, "I'm just worried that with the temperament of these children, if they're not careful and blurt it out, then it won't be pretty. That's easy to handle. Although that child, Chumo, is usually carefree, if Lao Tzu personally instructs him, he will definitely protect the crown prince properly." Before. Get lost. Old Hay with your petty thoughts, your Chumo. Chuo with his big mouth, wouldn't even wait for 30,000 bottles of wine before he spilled everything, including his grandfather's name. And your Chumo. Your Majesty, let Chong go. After all, Chong is familiar with Cheng Qian and the others. Naturally he will listen to Chong. Get lost. Zhang Sun, you old thief, your king abusing your position for personal gain. Qing Yaojin's face and neck were red as he roared. Li Shimin furrowed his brows as he roared. Finally, Li Shimin had enough and exploded. Shut up all of you. Chapter 122. Hearing that, everyone's necks shrank. They hurriedly quieted down and kept quiet out of fear. How could Li Shimin not know what they were thinking? This was where he was hesitant. If he let Qing Qian and the others go, then these old fellows would annoy him to death. Last time he had only mentioned it slightly and in the end he had caused a whole lot of trouble. They only stopped when he personally told them to drop the matter. This time Li Shimin was really moved. Not to mention Zhang Feng's unfathomable knowledge, he was very moved by his ability to govern the country. If not for his status, he would have bowed his head and kowtowed long ago. However, this was such a serious matter. What had these fools done to make it look like? Wei Zheng was also pointing at them with righteous indignation. His fingers were trembling. Look at all of you. Are you still a subject? Is there anyone like you? I've decided. As he spoke, Wei Zheng turned to look at Li Shimin and kowtowed. Your Majesty, although I haven't seen Brother Zhang Feng last time, he gave me such a high evaluation. The subject is ashamed. So this old subject has decided that if your Majesty really wants the crown prince and the others to go, this old subject is willing to accompany them. Shameless. Too shameless. Everyone stared at Wei Zheng with disdain. However, Wei Zheng still straightened his back and looked like he was ready to die. Looking at him, Li Shimin felt a toothache. Your Majesty, you are the ruler of a country. You have concerns, but I, Wei Zheng, have none. As a subject, I should share your Majesty's worries. This old subject is bold enough to personally go and take care of the crown prince and the others' daily lives. This is just to protect the crown prince and ensure that Brother Zhang Feng doesn't have a trace of suspicion. No. Wei Zheng, you shameless old man. So this is where you dug your hole. Your Majesty, if that's the case, I, Old Cheng, will go too. Anyway, I, Old Cheng, am familiar with Brother Zhang Feng. It's easier with more people. Your Majesty, you mustn't. We can't be careless about this matter. If the ministers in the imperial court find out about this, they might make trouble for no reason. Fang Xianling and Du Ruhui had never seen Zhang Feng before. They had only heard of him, but now that they saw the ugliness of these people, they were dumbfounded. He was dumbfounded. Was this the same Wei Zheng who was so awesome? Was this still the fearless Black Qing? Was this still the smiling tiger, the slippery Zhang Sun Wuji? Oh my God! Had the world gone mad? Although they had never met Zhang Feng before, these two fellows were adamant that they were not allowed to go. In addition, the argument between Qing Yaojin and the other two made the veins on Li Shimin's face pop out. Get lost. Get out of my sight. Let's talk about this later. Li Shimin was furious. Everyone could only leave with their tails between their legs. However, everyone was especially concerned about this matter. The emperor didn't refuse, but he also didn't agree. That meant there was a chance? On the way out of the palace, the five of them each had their own thoughts. They were all thinking about how they could stuff their precious son into it. Zhang Feng was a big treasure. Although they all knew that their son could not reach Zhang Feng's level, if he could learn 30% or even 10%, then their family would be able to bring glory to their family. At the very least, it would allow their family to prosper for a few more generations. Of course, Fang Xianling and Du Ruhui didn't talk much when they arrived, but after years of cooperation, they could read each other's minds from their eyes. Then they glanced at Qing Yaojin, who was swaying on his horse while drinking wine and singing a tune. They urged the sedan bearers to overtake Qing Yaojin, then blocked Qing Yaojin's path with smiles. Lord Qing, let's go. I've prepared a jar of good Indian wine. It's still early, why don't we move? Although Qing Yaojin was careless and drunk, his thoughts were as clear as a mirror. He knew what was going on with just a little thought. He laughed and said, all right. Lead the way. Fang Xianling abandoned his sedan and joined Qing Yaojin in Du Ruhui's sedan. Although it was a little crowded, Fang Xianling didn't mind at this time. He even endured the strong stench of Qing Yaojin's feet. Old Black. How many years has it been since we rode in a carriage together? Du Ruhui stroked his white beard. Although it tugged from time to time with the jolting of the sedan, he still stroked it habitually to hide his nervousness. I have a bad memory. It was probably when we went to Hangu Pass together when His Majesty was still the King of Qin? It was too long ago. Seeing that Qing Yaojin remembered, they looked at each other and said, Old Black, I want to discuss something with you. What do you think? Qing Yaojin raised his broom-like eyebrows. It's about your boys, right? I don't think there's a chance this time. Qing Yaojin pretended to sigh and said, His Majesty is hesitating. Even I can see it. Can't you two see it? How could Fang and Du not think about what Qing Yaojin said? But what could they do now? Now it was the critical moment. If they didn't do anything, wouldn't the younger generation benefit from Zhang Feng, who was also very capable? How could they do that? However, at this moment, Qing Yaojin smiled slyly and said, Actually, I think His Majesty has made up his mind this time, but he needs an opportunity. Only then can His Majesty make up his mind. The two were stunned and asked hurriedly, What opportunity? Chapter 123. At this time, the sky was still dark. The thick fog shrouded the imperial city, and the sound of the evening drum and morning bell could be heard. The officials, dressed in various robes and holding white jade tablets, stepped on the drums and passed through 3 checkpoints before slowly appearing in the political announcement hall. Today, Zhangsun Wuji came earlier than usual. When the crowd entered the political announcement hall, Wei Zheng was already sleeping with his eyes closed. Even the noise of the crowd did not have a trace of objection or reprimand. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. In the past, if the crowd was so noisy, they would have been scolded by Wei Zheng. How could he be so easy to talk to? Just as the crowd was talking, suddenly, a light flashed through the door behind them. Then Xiao Gizi shouted at the top of his voice. His Majesty has arrived. The crowd hurriedly tidied their clothes and then knelt on the ground. Welcome, Your Majesty. As the voice fell, Li Shimin, dressed in a yellow dragon robe, walked into the crowd's sight with majestic steps. Before they could sit down, Li Shimin waved his sleeve. Rise. The officials stood up. But at this time, the frown of the crowd became deeper and deeper. Something was wrong. In today's morning court, from Zhangsun Wuji to Wei Zheng to the emperor, there was something wrong everywhere. At this time, Li Shimin could not wait for the crowd to speak, so he said directly, Since the founding of the Tang Dynasty has been suffering from the flames of war. Then we experienced the Wei River and the Shili incident. I have been looking for a chance to let the Tang Dynasty have a breather. But recently Longyu Road has encountered a rare drought. You all know about this. Li Shimin's voice paused, but the corner of his eyes paused for a second among the civil officials. Seeing that they just lowered their heads to listen, he could not help but say again, But God has blessed the Tang Dynasty with a wonderful method to solve the drought in Longyu Road and help friends to establish supreme friendship. This is the gospel to stabilize the Tang Dynasty. Emperor. At this moment, among the civil officials, there was a minister from the imperial censorate who reported, Your Majesty, this humble subject has a memorial. The corners of Li Shimin's mouth revealed a smile that no one could understand. But regarding this matter, we have to start from the Tubo envoy. This humble subject heard that the emperor received 45 million taels of gold in exchange for resources to help Tubo deal with the drought. This is really helping the people of Tubo rise in popularity? Lord Sun. Zhang Sun Wuji calmly interrupted the speaker and said, "Do you mean that His Majesty shouldn't have given it to Tubo? Do you really want to see Tubo's army besieging the city?" Zhang Sun's words made Sun Qian's heart tremble, but he still stiffened his neck and said, "Lord Zhang Sun, I heard that you were the one who proposed this." The old man only felt that this matter was too thoughtless. "May I ask, Lord Zhang Sun, how do you plan to use this money? Are you going to grind it into powder and distribute it to the disaster victims, or are you going to exchange it for food in Tubo? Your Majesty, this old subject has a memorial to report." At this moment, another Confucian official from the minister's mansion bowed and interrupted Sun Qian, saying, "Your Majesty, this minister is the minister. At this time my cave is also suffering from a drought. My Shandong gentry has been using the power of the entire clan to help the disaster victims." "Then what do you mean?" Li Shimin did not even raise his eyelids as he asked indifferently. The old man with a head full of white hair and some balding said tremblingly, "Now the drought in Longyu has stopped, and this old subject knows that there is still food left. This old subject is bold enough to request for relief for the disaster victims of Shandong." "Old thing. There is food. But that is the military supplies of my Longyu garrison. You dare to have any ideas about this? Do you think that I, old Qing, am heir?" Qing Yaojin exploded. "These old things usually can't do anything, but now when it comes to food they don't even bat an eyelid. There is a drought in Shandong, but that drought can be suppressed as long as there is good irrigation. It is not as serious as you say it is. If that were the case, the emperor would have sent people over long ago. Do you still need to nag?" Qing Yaojin did not dare to say the rest. This was the imperial court, so he could only criticize in his heart. As soon as Qing Yaojin's words fell, the military general's side exploded in an instant. "You old bastard. As far as I know, all the land in Shandong is monopolized by the Shandong gentry. Now that there is a slight drought, you don't think of a solution, but the first thing you think of is benefits? Damn it. How dare you fight for the food of hundreds of thousands of soldiers in Lao Tzu's army? If it weren't for us defending the country with our lives, would you still be able to plot against each other so peacefully? You would have become a Turkic chamber pot long ago." In an instant, the civil officials also exploded. "Vulgar. How can there be such a vulgar person in the imperial court of the Tang Dynasty? Your Majesty, this person should be beheaded. Your Majesty, that old thief Yuchi has evil intentions. He is cursing Your Majesty and wants to destroy the country. Your Majesty, if we don't kill Yuchi, we won't be able to convince the world." Enough. At this moment, Wei Zheng, who had been silent all this time, shouted coldly. "I, Wei Zheng, would like to ask, where is this place? This is the imperial court of the Tang Dynasty, not a place for you to make a scene. His Majesty hasn't said a word, and you want to convict him of murder? Are you trying to take matters into your own hands?" Chapter 124. Li Shimin had known about it for a long time, and he was certain that the reason why this matter did not break out before was because someone was holding back a big move. But he never expected that the nobles of Shandong would come out. Over the years, because of some things, Li Shimin had always turned a blind eye to the nobles of Shandong. But now, Li Shimin waved his hand casually. "I know about what happened in Shandong. Yesterday, the Minister of Agriculture handed me a memorial saying that the drought in Shandong was caused by your improper management. The taxes of Shandong have been reduced every year. I don't believe that the nobles of Shandong can't even afford this little bit of food. If no one dies in this matter, I won't ask about it. But if something happens, I will investigate it to the end." This was the first time Li Shimin felt extremely comfortable. The suppression of the Shandong landlords, especially after the Wei River Alliance, caused the landlords of Shandong to jump up and down. Especially before, the matter of the chickens and ducks was also caused by them. Li Shimin also wanted to use this matter to suppress the landlords of Shandong. However, he had been worried. It was not until he met Zhang Feng yesterday and heard what Zhang Feng said that Li Shimin made up his mind to rectify the situation. Zhang Feng was right. The imperial power of the world was in his hands. He looked at the civil officials below, who belonged to the nobles of Shandong, and saw a large number of them kneeling with red faces. Li Shimin got up and said casually, "The border is the gateway of the Tang Dynasty. If there are no soldiers guarding the country and deterring the foreign tribes, don't you think that the people of Tubo will do this? Back then you didn't know anything about the drought in Longyu. Now that the epidemic has passed, you want to fight for things, even the food of the soldiers at the border? When the nobles of Shandong heard this, their expressions changed drastically. Your Majesty, I'm innocent. I'm doing this for the sake of the Tang Dynasty. The drought in our caves has been spreading. Because of the incident in Longyu, we could only grit our teeth and bear with it. But now the nobles of Shandong are about to run out of food. We have to report it. There are no wars at the border now. Why don't we reduce the expenditure of the soldiers? Relief for the victims is the foundation of the country. Your Majesty has reached an agreement with Tubo and signed an agreement with the Turks. We think that although the border is important, we don't need to feed a group of boorish people. Let them go home and farm. What the Tang Dynasty needs now is world peace. Damn it. Qing Yaojin, Yuqi Jingda, and the other generals. They rolled up their sleeves. Li Shimin's expression was also gloomy. Very well. Then Lord Wang, I'll leave this matter to you. Dismiss the soldiers and guard the borders of the country. If you can guard the Tang Dynasty for a year, I'll dismiss all the soldiers of the Tang Dynasty. How about that? The old bald official, who was crying the most miserably, stopped abruptly. Your Majesty, this matter. I'm a scholar. I don't understand the actions of those boorish people. Old man. Li Shimin's sleeve was also angry. I've already given the order. Do you think it's child's play? You keep saying that they're boorish people, so I'll send you there now. We'd like to see if the pen in your hands and the principles you speak of can make the Turks submit. This matter is not discussed anymore. Xiao Gizi, immediately write an edict for the garrison of Yuzhou and Longyu to withdraw and give up the border. Let Lord Wang arrange for men to guard the border. If there's a loss, all 9 generations will be executed. Your Majesty, what if Lord Wang manages to guard the border? Qing Yaojin asked as he looked at the ashen-faced nobles of Shandong with a half-smile. Li Shimin smiled coldly. If he manages to guard the border, I'll grant him 10 years of tax exemption in Shandong. I'll agree to all his demands. When they heard that and saw Xiao Gizi stamp the imperial edict with the seal, most of the nobles of Shandong fainted. The generals and the others burst into laughter. However, they also knew that there was a reason for this. The defenders would still be them. The emperor was only asking them to guard the border. This explained a lot of things. Would they dare to go? Of course not. The emperor was determined to get rid of them. Then Li Shimin said, yesterday I came across a method by chance. Wei Zheng, tell me about it. The subject obeys. Wei Zheng accepted the order and then gave a simplified and systematic description of the salt and the cooperative that Zhang Feng mentioned. This time, more than half of the nobles of Shandong fainted again. If they had not coveted the money just now, such a lucrative job would have been theirs. Now, not only did they lose their wives, but they also angered the emperor. They were in trouble. However, at this time, no matter how the nobles of Shandong begged and swore to take on this task to atone for their sins, Li Shimin did not even look at them. What Li Shimin was worried about did not happen. The ministers in the court were all in favor of this novel and seemingly effective way to stimulate the economy. Li Shimin felt good. He waved his hand and said, Zhang Sun Wuji, Du Ruhui, and Fang Xianling. The subject obeys. I order you to do your best to test this in Chang'an. I want to see results within a month. The subject obeys. Chapter 125. After dealing with the affairs of the imperial court, Li Shimin stayed behind alone, which scared Wei Zheng, Zhang Sun Wuji, and the others. This time, Li Shimin was in a particularly good mood. A banquet was held in the imperial garden to entertain everyone. But everyone's heart was as clear as a mirror. There was an important matter to discuss. Sure enough, after 3 rounds of wine, Li Shimin looked at the lush scenery in the imperial garden and said, this matter has been discussed, but regarding the banknotes that little brother Zhang Feng mentioned, we still need to wait for Shang Jue. How do you think we should deal with the banknotes? Your Majesty, I didn't sleep last night and thought of an idea. Fang Xianling shook his beard to prevent the north wind from blowing onto the dishes on the table. He said, I think that the large banknotes we use now are all made by the Ministry of Works and the Ministry of Appointments. These banknotes only circulate in the hands of merchants and a small number of people. I think that if we improve it slightly, we might have an unexpected effect. Fang Xuanling's words made Li Shimin's eyes light up. He asked, continue. Your Majesty, the banknotes we use now have a minimum denomination of 1,000 taels of silver and up to 10,000 taels of gold. But for ordinary people or merchants, they don't circulate well. The currency that circulates in the market is basically paper money. If we make the banknote smaller, maybe it will work. Wei Jing frowned and asked, but Lord Feng Zhang Feng said yesterday that the banknotes are not effective. How can we make them into a currency that circulates throughout the country and even the world? How to replace gold and silver is the key. That's the problem. Feng Xianling sighed and said, but last night when I was looking at Zhang Feng's calligraphy and paintings, I suddenly had an idea and drew a few banknotes as a blueprint. Please take a look, Your Majesty. Your Majesty. As he spoke, Feng Xianling carefully took out a piece of paper from his bosom, which was densely covered in ink. He unfolded it and placed it in front of Li Shimin. There were dragon patterns on the first painting, and on the left and right were the words on the coins. On the left was Jingguan Tongbao from the Tang Dynasty. On the right was 1,000 taels of gold. In the middle was a picture of a 9-clawed golden dragon, and there was even a seal drawn in red paint on the picture. If Zhang Feng were here, he would definitely jump to his feet. Wasn't it just money? The next few paintings were all based on this one, but the numbers changed from big to as small as 1 copper coin, and the drawings changed from 1 foot high and half a foot wide to less than the size of a palm. However, this was already enough to shock Li Shimin. Minister Feng, you really are good. Just do it. But, Li Shimin calmed down slightly, frowned and thought for a while and then said, Zhang Sun, take this drawing to Zhang Feng immediately and see what he thinks. If there is no problem, from tomorrow onwards, I will give you a token to go to Chang and City immediately. Start with the merchants and the major banks in Chang and City. Your Majesty. Wei Jing asked, this old subject thinks that we have more than 40 million taels of gold in our hands, plus the money in the national treasury. If we set up a bank, why do we need to make peace with others? Li Shimin heard this. He slapped his forehead hard. He forgot about this matter. If he borrowed the hands of others, wouldn't he be sharing his money with others? And he really didn't feel at ease leaving this matter to others. He also forgot Zhang Feng's words in a moment of excitement. He couldn't help but slap the blueprint of the banknotes and said, I will go personally to set up a bank and pawn shop. No. Everyone was shocked when they heard this. The emperor will go personally? How could this be? This was the emperor. How could those merchants compare to him? But Li Shimin didn't care. Every day he heard Zhang Feng's business ideas. Although magnified countless times, it was the way to rule a country. He also saw the profiteering of merchants. He also wanted to experience the real pleasure of doing business. And most importantly, this matter, the pawn shop and the bank, he had to have it in his hands to be at ease. Even if it was the crown prince, he couldn't be at ease. Enough. I've made up my mind. Aren't we merchants in the eyes of brother Zhang Feng? Then this time I will play the role of a true merchant with you. Wei Jing wanted to persuade him again. If this matter was known by others, wouldn't they be laughed at? But before he could say anything, Zhang Sun Wuji raised his wine cup and poured a cup of wine for him. This matter was finally decided. And everyone left in a hurry. At this moment, Zhang Sun Wuji's little scheme sprouted again. Sitting in the sedan chair swayed dizzily. Looking at the blueprint of the banknotes in his hand, Zhang Sun Wuji's face flashed a different look. This time the emperor was going to set up a bank in person. It was obvious that he was determined to keep a close eye on Zhang Feng. This time he had to speed up. Otherwise there would be no other way in the future. Thinking of this, Zhang Sun Wuji shouted to the groom outside the sedan chair, go and tell Wei Jing and the other lords to have a small gathering at the residence.